It was only in the middle of her wedding ceremony that our female protagonist received her memories of a previous life. She realized that this world was set within an atom game, one that she had played in her last life, revolving around the aristocrats of high society, and she was the character who had horribly bullied and tormented the heroine. A villainess who received her just desserts by having to marry an ugly aged man. Her eyes widen when she catches sight of the prince, but the surprise quickly hardens into a glare. In this world she is known as Celestine, the daughter of the Marquess and the first prince's fiancée. But that same prince gave his heart to the heroine instead. She did everything she could to eliminate that woman who had threatened her future place by his side. However, once the prince learned of her childish torment, he used it as a pretext to dissolve their engagement. And so this abominable wedding awaits her. Her husband to be the prime minister is constantly embroiled in nasty rumors, most of which condemns him as a disgusting womanizer and lecherous pervert. She bitterly thinks all of this is thanks to his highness' suggestion. The prince turns to the girl by his side, smiling as she tells him the wedding dress sure is pretty. While the other nobles stare at her, Celestine feels as though they're gawking at a public execution. Her attention snaps back when the priest announces it is time to exchange vows and seal the union with a kiss. Her eyes widen at the sight of her husband, unable to believe that this man is her husband. Suddenly, a thought slams to her. He isn't bad at all. She has only ever seen him as a repulsive and toadish man before. In fact, she didn't even try to hide her disgust whenever she glanced in his direction. So just why is her heart beating so fast? She knows this is downright bizarre. She means he must be at least twice her age. It's unthinkable, but still she can't help but wonder, could this be because of the memories of her past life? With a sudden lift of her chin, he tells her there is no reason to fear, calling her his lovely lady. Once again, her heart races. Finding it all too absurd, her vision starts to spin. Somehow, after she had fallen asleep last night, she began recalling the memories of her previous incarnation in more detail. Her father had passed on very early into her childhood. Perhaps because of that, she had always yearned for affection from an older man and saw them in a romantic light. Basically what they call a panther. She then turns to her husband, poking him in the shoulder. He sits up, rubbing his eyes. She apologizes for waking him up, but then leans closer to him. With a light smile, she admits last night was wonderful. He flatly asks if her maid taught her to say something like that, remarking women always utter such platitudes. And declares as young and beautiful as she is, her feelings are of little interest to him. She thinks to herself, what an awful retort. By the virtue of the tastes she has inherited from her previous life, she feels she can even look past that comment. It is as if the past her and present her are becoming one and the same. Or rather, it is as if the memories of her previous life are growing increasingly stronger. She ignores his words and tells him he must have been ever so popular until now, hasn't he? But from now on she wants to be the one and only recipient of his affections, unless he would hate the idea of that. He sighs, admitting he will devote all his attention to her for the time being, but warns heaven knows how long that will last. He then turns to her and she stares into his eyes, wondering just how can she let her feelings touch his heart. Later at the table, she chastises him, claiming his meals are far too greasy and oily and says she must eat more vegetables and take care of his health. She asks if he intends to make her a young widow. He stares flatly at the plates of salad in her hands and mutters that he will not eat like a rabbit. Then, with dry finality, he declares that if the only alternative is an early grave, so be it. Her angry glare forces him to pick up the salad and start chomping, which finally earns a smile from her. From then on, their married life together was surprisingly peaceful and fulfilling. One day, as they sit together, he asks her how does she feel about him. She's surprised for a moment, but then blurts his breath has an awful stench. Her words strike him in the chest. She goes on that he's always acting as if he is above everyone and everything, and when he sneezes, nothing escapes the ensuing spittle shower. He has absolutely no taste, and watching him tell his awful old man jokes in public is enough to make her want to die from embarrassment. But before she can tell him the things she loves about him, he suddenly cuts her off, saying that's enough. He says being forced to marry an ugly old man like him against her wishes. He is fully aware of just how much she must loathe him. Without warning, he exclaims he never would have imagined him to be this lovely. At first he had every intention of administering the punishment that the prince had requested of him upon her, but that was then. She watches him as he avoids her gaze and admits he fell in love with her, despite being unworthy of her. He tells her that if she wishes, she may drain his coffers and he will turn a blind eye even should she take other lovers. In return, all he asks is that she remain by his side. She falls silent for a moment before saying she will be honest with him so he must not speak of such things again. Then she adds that if her gaze ever turned to another man, he would hate it, wouldn't he? Likewise, if her lord became besotted with another woman, she would beat that thieving cat black and blue. And never utter a word to him again. He blurts he would never be unfaithful. He would never wrong her and pleads with her to continue to stay, smiling by his side. As they walk together, every gaze follows them in awe, whispers rising, "Who on earth is she? So beautiful, like a living goddess of the night." Just then, they come across the prince, who looks taken aback and asks if she is truly Celestine. She answers with casual grace, saying it has indeed been quite some time, and thanks him profusely for gracing them with his presence this evening. She adds, almost sweetly, that it is also thanks to His Highness's blessing that they are able to enjoy such a lovely married life together. The prince regards her with surprise before remarking, almost at a loss, that she has truly changed, hasn't she? Celestine smirks faintly and replies so he has noticed. Then she goes on to say her husband has managed to lose a little weight, refined his hairstyle and taste in evening attire, and even polished his column until her husband cuts her off. He tells her the prince was speaking of her. Turning back to His Highness, the Lord smoothly asks what he thinks of his wife's dress this evening. The prince, clearly flustered, replies that it flatters her greatly. The Lord says the truth is this dress was crafted in the Solier style. It is seen from a type of silk produced from silkworms endemic to Solier. He then tells his wife she should be grateful it is all because of His Highness that such an exquisite dress could be prepared for her. The prince looks surprised and asks what does he mean by that. Before he can reply, a voice cuts through the air, announcing His Majesty wishes to make an announcement. His Majesty appears, declaring he wishes to make an announcement this evening concerning the marriage of his son, the first prince. He flinches in surprise while his lover next to him looks excited. She suddenly blushes and says this is too sudden. But just then, the king declares he shall be wedded to Her Majesty the Queen of Solier. His eyes go wide in shock. His father continues that the first prince is to become the Queen of Solier's 13th consort and he is to deport it at dawn tomorrow. He calls out to his father, telling him this isn't a bit funny and to stop joking. His father flatly says his words are not in jest. The decision has already been made, and the second prince shall be instated as crown prince, so the matter of inheritance is no cause for worry. Suddenly, his lover blurts but she has been His Highness' fiancée all along, hasn't she? His Majesty says the Queen is well acquainted with the fact. She has also made it clear that she is happy to accept her alongside him as one of her concubines and she also said she should personally take great pleasure in ensuring they are both well cared for. Whispers ripple through the crowd, murmuring that the Queen is truly wild. And the word is that gender is of little consequence to her. The Lord thinks it was thanks to the prince's suggestion that he was able to enjoy the marital bliss he has right now. Originally, the thought of scheming against someone he was indebted to had never crossed his mind. But he would do anything to protect his wife. The prince and that little girl were still plotting to hurt her even after all this time. He's offended that they truly believed he was blind to their intentions. As soon as they learned of how Celestine and they were happily married, they planned to have him removed from his position. However, the people they tried to conspire with were already firmly in his pocket. After all, the royal family are nothing if not puppets to the office of the Prime Minister. To be ignorant of the true authority pulling the strings of this country. Such pitiful children. The prince flinches when the Lord offers his heartfelt congratulations. He casually says he has heard that his betrothed is very pleased with his looks. And by dint of his engagement they were able to finalize a very lucrative trade deal involving Solier itself that would make other countries green with envy. He smiles as the prince finally realizes he has been fooled, remarking that this will surely bring a prosperous future for their country. The weight of his words sinks into him and he turns to Celestine who manages a simple smile as she offers her congratulations. His lord then suggests they take their leave, to which she giggles softly and agrees. From now on she is determined to be by his side. Now then shall they walk hand in hand down the flowery path of evil. On their way back in the carriage, Celestine notices a few wild rabbits darting through the grass and asks if they weren't cute, to which her husband calmly replies that they are lively creatures and would make excellent pelts. She falls silent, making him wonder if his answer has been clumsy, but when she only smiles turns to the window, his face flushes red. Soon after, she asks where the carriage is headed. And he explains that he has recently acquired new land to inspect, which brings them at last to a quiet building, where Celestine looks around in surprise and asks what place this was, only for him to answer simply that it is an orphanage. The former lord of these lands was quite partial to this orphanage in particular, so he, as the new lord, thought he should at least make an appearance. An old man greets them with a warm smile and introduces himself as the director of the orphanage. The lord then says the goddess by his side is his wife. The director looks stunned by her beauty. The lord says he is sure there must have been no shortage of confusion caused by the sudden change in this landslide, but rest assured he do not intend on changing the existing support for the orphanage and tells him to continue to operate without worries. The director beams, saying if it so pleases him, would he allow the children the opportunity to greet as well. He then calls out the children. They all come running, looking at them with excited faces. Celestine smiles at their cuteness while the lord looks overwhelmed. The lord then tells Celestine he prepared some small gifts for the children in advance. And then decides to speak with the director on the finer details of the orphanage's future. After he leaves clumsily, she glances at him, thinking her lord who's helpless before children is ever so cute. Before turning back to the children and thanking them for their excellent greetings. She then introduces herself and starts talking to them. In the distance, a boy leaning against a tree glares at her. While the gifts are being distributed among the children, she tells them there is plenty for everyone, so not to fight. A girl looks at her in awe and asks if she is a princess. She's taken aback by her compliment, so she asks what makes her think so. The girl beams, saying it's because she's all sparky, like a princess from a fairy tale, and her dress is super pretty. The others laugh and start calling her princess, which makes her smile, until she freezes when the boy from earlier, Ethan, calls out to them with a glare. Suddenly, he screams, "Who cares if that woman is a princess or not?" and declares she's just another one of those vile noblewomen, warning them not to fall for her tricks. But a boy points out she brought everyone all these presents, and are not these sweets from her really tasty? But Ethan snaps, it is all in act. These nobles only care about acting all superior and looking down on the rest of them who are not high-born like them. Celestine calmly states she doesn't have the inclination towards looking down on anyone in such a manner. He snaps at her to save her lies. Dress it up however she likes, the fact remains. She keeps her composure and asks him just what exactly is he so angry about. He retorts, everyone here remembers what happened when the previous lord's daughter visited. That woman shed tears as if she truly pitied them, and just like she did today, she prepared a bunch of presents as well. Celestine says that is a wonderful person, then. Ethan admits that is what they all thought as well at first, that it was purely from the goodness of her heart, but then he points at the little child clinging to her and says that woman kicked Ted there with everything she had. All because her dress would be ruined if he touched it with his dirty, drool-covered hands. Those were the words she hurled at Ted, even though he was crying in pain. His eyes turn accusing as he declares that's nobles for them. And declares no matter how prettily they sugarcoat their words, deep down they scorn them like they are idiots. She doesn't bother replying and casually pulls the children closer. The girl hesitates, telling her to let go. She was pulling out weeds earlier and Ted's hands are dirty as well. But, Celestine counters, isn't it fine if her dress is dirty? What's stopping her from simply buying a new one? She gently tells them to not tar her with the same brush as those who are nobles who would say such miserly things. As she turns to leave, Ethan grits his teeth and accuses her of taking from those weaker than herself while she sits in comfort at home, telling her to stop being so arrogant. She turns back to him with calm defiance, remarking that though he may look like the oldest among them, in truth he's more childish than any of them. She points out all the other children instinctively know that it is in their best interest to get on her good side, and yet here he stands, trying to lay waste to the only chance these children may ever have with his pretty pride. He snaps at her to shut up. But she continues in her compost on saying isn't he equally arrogant to complain and deride those arrogant nobles whose charity is keeping all of them clothed and fed? At last, she declares, the weak are exploited by the strong, such as the natural order of this world. No matter how much the powerless whine and bemoan their station, words alone shall never amount to anything. She notices him trembling and points it out, asking if she upset him. Suddenly she leans in closer, whispering, in that case, why doesn't he try to pay back the favor as good as he gets? She will always be waiting for him so he can be sure to grow up splendidly. He looks confused and mutters what the hell, but she declares the truth is it is the wealthy who are the stingiest of them all, and she would utterly know to waste even a single coin if she can help it. So when people like herself donate to a place like this, it is not charity but an investment in all of their futures. His eyes surge with determination as he calls out to her, vowing that one day, when he grows up, he will be richer than anyone else, and when that day comes, she must believe he will repay the favor in full. She only smirks, saying she will look forward to it. Meanwhile, the director, still in shock, asks again if the previous lord, the Baron, was truly charged and found guilty. The lord answers yes, of both corruption and treason, calling him a villain in every possible sense. The director remarks that for someone of his caliber to inherit this land is a stroke of great fortune for them all, and thinking about Celestine, adds that with such a young and beautiful wife at his side, he must surely be a man of high rank, one in whom the orphanage's future is safe. Realizing too late his words might sound rude, he hastens to explain that he knows little about him, as the handover of the region came on such short notice. The lord calls out to the director, remarking that, as he must surely tell from just one glance at his wife, he has no inclination for women on the younger side, and adds that rumor has it the late Baron ran such a business as well. The director, flustered, admits that when the Baron was caught, he was honestly wondering what course to take. The lord's eyes narrow as he says, "So I was right," and the director confirms it, explaining that although the girls they first heard of were of age, they have already been moved, but if he can wait just 3 more years, the ones they have now will grow splendidly. He even offers, almost casually, that if he prefers a boy instead, they have one at hand. At that moment the doors slam open and guards flood into the room, seizing the director, who stares in stunned disbelief. One of the knights turns to the Prime Minister and announces that they will begin searching for records and receipts of sale to track down the children who were sold. He replies to keep it quiet as he would rather not cause Celestine any worry, so make sure she doesn't catch any wind of this. The director snaps, demanding to know why, scoffing that the Prime Minister is snuffing out one trivial crime. Does he truly believe that will change the world at all? He insists that of all people, the Prime Minister should know better. He replies coldly that the notion of changing the world has never interested him, everything he does is for Celestine's future. Anyone who dares to harm her or abets those who would will be dealt with as he sees fit. Desperate now, the director cries that he has never once done anything to harm his wife. The lord only answers with chilling casualness, reminding him that the Baron had a beloved daughter he doted on, thinking of the prince's lover. He adds her main source of financial support was her father, the Baron. Naturally, that did not sit well with him. If the director must hold a grudge, he should hold it against the Baron for being far too soft with his daughter. With that, he asks his men to take the director away. On their way back, Celestine asks him if he defeated the villain he was after today. The lord remarks so she noticed. She smiles and says yes. None of the children looked underfed, however neither their skin nor hair showed any signs of care. Most importantly, amongst the older children, not a single one was a girl. It was plain to see that it wasn't an orphanage run with particularly philanthropic intentions. He sighs and says he cannot deny that. She reaches out to cup his cheek and says, "From now on, they have to defeat every villain they come across, don't they? Since, after all, villains other than themselves are nothing but an eyesore, aren't they?" As she settles into his arms, he murmurs that yes, the only evil that needs to flourish is theirs, after all. She then tells him she also came across an interesting boy while she was there, then leans in to whisper against his ear that he has something great within him. She could see it clearly in his eyes. Afterwards, that boy graduated from the same orphanage safely, and after making his way to the capital and knocking on many doors, he landed an apprenticeship with an affluent merchant. Eventually, he grew up to become an exceptional merchant who proved to be of great service to the family of the Prime Minister. But that's the story for another time. A hot purple dress. A bird of paradise hairpiece. Lubigamo's latest heels. As a girl stands before the mirror, she muses she really is the flower of high society. There is no way that she will ever lose to her. On the other hand, Celestine receives a letter from the orphanage children. She reads the letter and remarks they are really learning to write quite splendidly, are not they? In any case, it is glad to hear that they are all lively. The maid then pulls out something and says it arrived with the letters. Celestine guesses mud balls, perhaps. The maid says if they are, they did not survive the trip. Celestine is sure this was from Ted. The maid offers to dispose of it, but Celestine tells her no. It is such a splendid gift, she will have to be sure to put it to good use. As they arrive at the party, every head turns toward Celestine, admiring her beauty as always. The Prime Minister excuses himself with an apology, needing to attend to urgent business, and Celestine assures him it is fine since she had planned to join the other madams anyway. When she approaches them, one greets her with praise for looking as stunning as ever, another compliments her gown, and she graciously returns the compliment, telling them they look wonderful themselves. Their conversation flows easily until a sudden commotion draws every gaze to a young woman entering the hall. The ladies gush over her until the ones beside Celestine scoff, muttering that Miss Clara of House Bras is at it again. They whisper that the girl has been imitating Celestine at every turn and that tonight's gown is nearly identical to the one she wore to last week's party. Celestine only smiles, saying she doesn't particularly mind, but the women bristle, insisting Clara is going too far. But Celestine remarks that countless young ladies have tried to copy her before, and the others agree, dismissing Clara as someone far beneath Lady Celestine's circle. Their chatter turns to Clara's family while Clara listens in silence, gritting her teeth. One woman also remarks she is simply desperate to stand out in whatever way she can. Celestine tells her she's flattered that they would become so animated on her behalf. But she's sure there's something more entertaining to discuss. Her voice drops as she whispers, such as her dear husband's snoring, for example. Her eyes soften as she asks the woman that when her husband starts snoring, doesn't she feel the overpowering urge to give him a great big hug? Admitting she cannot help but want to pamper him with a hug, and when she does, he always turns on his side and hugs her back. She declares snoring is good for his breathing, it's good for their love. It's simply an all-round god. But the woman doesn't look that touched by her husband's snoring and complains he is getting on in years, so his musk makes it a bit overwhelming to hold him like that. Yet Celestine takes her words in an entirely different light and says she understands her perfectly. The musk is so overwhelmingly wonderful that it is near impossible to calm her passions enough to sleep. It is a scent that only a man of experience and wisdom can exude, isn't that right? It is also naturally a double-edged sword. Since she is sure, those pheromones of his must attract all manner of thieving cats. Meanwhile, the girls with Clara begin to pity her, thinking she isn't being seen as an equal at all. Clara grits her teeth before finally bursting out in anger. She declares that it feels as if someone is hell-bent on making her look like a fool. She insists she had been looking forward to unveiling this dress at tonight's party for months, only for someone to catch wind of it and parade it first to pass it off as their own fashion. No doubt, she says, someone with more money than sense must have bribed one of her household servants. At once, the others realize she is accusing Celestine of copying her. Outrage sparks on Celestine's behalf, but she gently urges everyone to calm down. She says it doesn't particularly matter who wore what first. When it comes to fashion, what matters most is the freedom to wear something that truly suits them. Wouldn't they agree? No one misses the underhanded comment and Celestine turns back to her friends, guiding the conversation with effortless grace. The girls fight to stifle their laughter, while Clara bites down on her finger, her fury barely concealed. Clara thinks how frustrating. It's like no matter what she does, she won't even do so much as look at her. But then Celestine's eyes drift to the Prime Minister, his aide pleading with him not to drink more wine as the madam had asked him to keep watch over him tonight. Clara realizes this is the Prime Minister. She recalls the rumors of his fondness for younger women and, emboldened, drifts over with a drink in hand. With a feigned stumble, she spills it on him, gasping out an apology and leaning close with a handkerchief. Wide-eyed, she murmurs if it pleases him, perhaps they could slip away somewhere private where she might make amends. To her shock, his expression hardens as he glares at her. First she drenches him in wine, now she dares to touch him so familiarly. What manner of girl is she? He demands her name, warning that whoever her father is, he will not hold his title come tomorrow. Clara trembles under the weight of his voice, but before she can say something, Celestine steps forward. Whispers ripple, is she about to plead for the very girl who had tried to humiliate her? Instead, she lifts her own glass and deliberately tips it over Clara's head. Eyes glinting with ice, she asks how dare she attempt to flirt with her husband in plain view of her. She then tells the Lord he doesn't have to be scared anymore as his Celestine is here. The Prime Minister tries to reason that she is merely a little girl he was handling, but she cuts him off, yelling just what on earth is he saying. She was about to push him down. He reminds her he is a grown man. Meanwhile, Clara sits trembling on the floor, every eye in the room fixed on her. One of the girls scoffs, wondering aloud what is wrong with such a vulgar display, while another leans closer and points out that her hairpiece, those feathers are obviously fake. A third laughs that her shoes look like something plucked straight off a common shelf. The irony is not lost on anyone. Though Clara had accused Celestine of imitation, no one could imagine Lady Celestine debasing herself with such shoddy adornments. Whispers sharpen to sneers as one girl remarks that Clara dares to pick a fight with Lady Celestine while being nothing more than the daughter of a viscount whose family barely clings to its title. Celestine glances at her and lets her know she is always determined to fight with any thieving cat who tries to get between them tooth and nail. However, on this occasion she may have gone somewhat overboard. With a smile, she suggests as an apology she could have a replacement dress arranged, and believes a more cute pastel-colored dress would suit her far better than a purple one. Suddenly Clara cries out, but that is not something Celestine would ever wear, and she wants to be like her. She wants to be a flower that nobody can look away from, just like her. Celestine is surprised at first, but then her smile returns and she admits she would like to wear a cute fluffy dress herself, but unfortunately it just wouldn't suit her at all. She offers her hand and reminds her, she said before, that the most important thing when it comes to fashion is freedom, did she not? She has her good qualities she should bring out as well. Celestine assures her she will be an outstanding beauty if she polishes her charms, but it's not something she can merely force overnight. She also points out that her skin is growing coarse, so she can tell she's not used to wearing makeup. Now that Celestine thinks of it, she has an excellent idea. She gives a bottle to her and Clara eyes it curiously. Celestine admits it is mud and tells her to apply it on her skin every night after taking off her makeup. Shocked, Clara repeats she is telling her to rub mud on her skin. Celestine smiles and says this is a special type of mud that she acquired via a secret route. If she uses this, she can have this skin that would be the envy of everyone. With that, she encourages her to bring out that glowing charm of hers. All the other girls rush eagerly to her side, each wanting the mud as well, but she only smiles apologetically, explaining that since it is a special product, she has only one to give away, but she promises she will be sure to send some to each of them when she is able to. Since she is indebted to everyone's kindness after all. And the first sample will only cost them a single silver coin. 1 month later, Clara twirls in her beautiful dress and Celestine smiles, remarking that it truly is a wonderful choice. Over tea, Celestine tells her she knew her eyes hadn't deceived her that night. Clara's gaze drifts to the necklace at Celestine's neck and she exclaims over the jewel's brilliance. Celestine smiles softly, explaining that she couldn't find the stone in the size she wanted, so she implored her husband to purchase the entire gem mine. Clara blurts out in shock, "The whole mine?" before suddenly bursting into laughter. When Celestine asks what amuses her so, Clara admits it is just the realization of how silly she had been to ever think of competing with her. Her parents, who have always been living in the shadow of her late grandfather who was very influential, always told her that she had to become the flower of high society, and so since Celestine seemed like the living embodiment of what it meant to be the flower of high society, she really admired her. She wanted to be just like her, so she started to imitate everything about her. But an imitation is just an imitation. It was something that could only ever pale in comparison to the real thing. Her conscience reminded her she was not beautiful or rich like Lady Celestine, and eventually the admiration she felt for her turned into jealousy. Clara further admits whenever she looked at all the things she used to try and imitate her scattered around her room, she just grew more depressed that no matter what she did, she just felt like a fake. Celestine simply listens to her, but then Clara abruptly shifts the topic, remembering her friends were hoping if they could get some of the mud as well. Celestine asks her if she means to say the girls that came to the party with her that night. Celestine then says since they are her friends, she will draw a 2-year subscription contract with a monthly fee of 40 gold coins. Clara's eyes widen. She once again looks at the necklace and reminds her she said she asked the Prime Minister for it. Celestine simply smiles, thinking in a world where industrialization hasn't truly developed, acidity in rainfall is still low due to a lack of air pollution, meaning that the vast majority of soil is rich with minerals no matter where it is sourced from. And so that mere mud those adorable little children from the orphanage work hard to send can be put to very valuable use. She could hardly throw it away, now, could she? Looking up at Clara, Celestine remarks that while her style of dress has certainly changed, it feels as though the entire atmosphere around her has shifted as well. With a playful glint in her eyes, she teases, asking if perhaps Clara has found love since they last met. At that, a blush quickly rises to Clara's cheeks, and she admits she has already fallen completely in love with an exceptionally glamorous but not at all easy to understand person. His father was cold-hearted, unscrupulous with women, and an ugly man to boot. He didn't want to be like him, so he worked hard to become someone completely different in both appearance and personality. But one day, a single comment from his ex-fiancée struck him like a dagger. That became the unexpected trigger for the incident. Celestine's face is pale as she mumbles that it almost seems as though her husband is having an affair. The young man nearly chokes on the tea he was sipping, blurting his father is having an affair. Wiping his mouth, he quickly says that such a thing is impossible. He recalls her name is Celestine and she is his father's new wife and his stepmother. She was a marquis daughter and originally the fiancée of the first prince of the country. But due to the prince's scheme, she was forced to marry his much older father. His father is good at his job as a statesman, but he is unattractive, a womanizer, and on top of that, rumors about him are always dark and never-ending. He believes marrying someone like that must be unbearably painful. Or at least that's what he thought. So at first, he kept his distance. Celestine says the husband of hers is a bit on the heavier side but his cool-headedness is cute and dandy. She also claims he is kinder than anyone else and full of dignity and he is a perfect man with nothing but charm. She cries out that there's no way another woman would leave such a husband material alone and she knew a day like this would come. The young man stills and then mutters under his breath, "Is she sane?" It seems his father was the ideal man for her. What's even more surprising is that she was apparently a special person for his father as well. He thought he would change a little since meeting her but it seems people cannot change so easily. He asks her if there's any real reason for her to believe that. She explains at the recent soiree, someone who seemed to be his lover said to her to return to her precious person. She further adds she cannot forgive the lack of charm in that person. Her whole body shakes in fury as she mutters someone like that, that's just impossible. How can anyone be calm, at ease with such a plain person as a rival? She says she's flashy in a good way or in a bad way, overly extravagant and with someone like that as a rival, she thinks she cannot bring any comfort to her husband. He is shocked. Normally she is full of confidence with an elegance and beauty that won't bend to anyone, yet now she is stumbling over something like this. He is quiet for a moment, watching her before deciding they should go to where his father is. Suddenly, he seems determined to get to the bottom of this and states if it is really an affair, he will take responsibility and strike his father with the hammer of injustice. He also points out if there's something worrying a mother, it will affect the child in her womb too, right? She listens to him in silence before finally placing her hand in his outstretched one, realizing he is right. This kind of weak attitude isn't like her at all and she needs to stay strong for the child. Later, they arrive at a house, with Mark quietly asking his man if his father is there. The reply is yes, confirmed by the guards and an uneasy thought crosses Mark's mind, about a pregnant wife stepping into the home of her husband's lover. As they step inside, they find a young woman serving tea. She stiffens at the sight of them, calling Celestine's name in shock, but Celestine only narrows her eyes before forcing a polite smile, saying she merely had some small business with her husband and hoped she wasn't intruding. Mark leans close, whispering for her to calm down, reminding her that the goal is to uncover the truth and there's no point in showing hostility too soon. She mutters that he's right, the one she needs to confront is her husband. When he calls out, asking what the matter is and what business she has with him, her face twitches at his calm tone. Muttering that she's really angry right now, she accuses him of being too calm. Looking startled, he asks if the sapphire he bought her recently was too small. She shoots back that no, that isn't it at all. So then he asks if she learned about him eating high-calorie dishes at work. She mumbles she didn't know that and she will ask about that later. She snaps she came to confront him at the location of his affairs. He teases my cute Celestine asking if she is jealous, but assures her that is just a misunderstanding. Suddenly the girl yells. Isn't that obvious? She was thinking why did she suddenly show up just to have some business with the Prime Minister and asks her isn't that incredibly rude? Celestine turns to her in anger and demands who was she talking about. The person she mentioned the other day as a precious person. She blurts it is Mark Sama. And declares Mark Sama is her fiancé. Surprised, Celestine glances at Mark to confirm it, who hesitates before correcting she is his ex-fiancé then narrows his eyes at his father and demands why is he here. The Lord casually says he was thinking of revisiting and finalizing the talks about his marriage. And a man of his age without a wife or even a fiancé would be quite embarrassing. Mark says they will discuss it another time. Suddenly his fiancée snaps, asking why. From where she remembers, he was also eager about this engagement before. Suddenly she says, so the rumor is true after all. Celestine repeats a rumor. So the girl snaps, it is a ridiculous rumor that the child in her womb is Mark's. Shocked, Celestine snaps back, what is that supposed to mean? And declares she has devoted herself to her husband alone in this life. Both husband and wife appear utterly enamored with one another, so Mark casually points a finger at them and asks her if the misunderstanding has cleared up now. She lowers her voice and quietly asks him why, only for him to sigh and answer, cursed blood, leaving her eyes widening in shock. He reminds her she went to a special soiree where people hid their eyes behind a mask. She was with her friends while he was also dragged there by his friend. He happened to overhear her talking. She was giggling to her friends and said he was certainly charming, but that cursed blood and all, it was about his hair. His family has a history of thinning hair. She didn't want to believe it, but seeing her father, who knew what could happen. She blurts that is not true, that cursed blood thing was just a joke. And even if such a future comes, she will continue to love him. Celestine suddenly snaps, saying she's been hearing them the whole time, bald this, bald that, before pointing furiously at her husband, declaring he's O-shaped while Mark is M-shaped, completely different patterns of baldness. To lump them together and spout about cursed blood as if she knows it all is nothing but an insult. Besides, balding isn't something to give up on, it's a wonderful option. Mark bursts into laughter, unable to believe she just called baldness an option. Celestine whirls on him, snapping that he should just go home, since they'll be returning to research hair growth medicine. But Mark teases her, asking isn't baldness supposed to be a wonderful option? She retorts that it's her opinion, though she doubts he feels the same. The Lord, intrigued, tries to inquire about the medicine, only for Celestine to shut him down, saying that his hair follicles are already dead, so it's far too late and pointless. Later, the marriage with Mark's ex-fiancée was officially annulled, and with an apology for causing a scene, the commotion was brought to an end. Holding a book, he eyes it warily. The rumor about him being with Celestine was even turned into a story. Some people sure have a lot of time on their hands. But leaving the rumor as it is might not be so bad. His much older father will pass on, leaving her behind. After that, he will be the only one who can protect her and the child. It might be interesting to let the rumor become the truth. In any case, it is still a distant future. Just then Celestine enters, her eyes gleaming as she announces good news. The hair growth medicine is complete. He can't believe she actually made one. She replies she made sure to be producible in large quantities, so she's thinking about distribution to the nobles. He murmurs that is so like her. She adds she also plans to be a bit creative with the selling method. She leans close and whispers in his ear that she'll sell it through acquaintances, who will pass it on to theirs, with each seller earning a margin. Then she asks if he doesn't think people will buy it like crazy once she tells them the money will roll in even while they're asleep. He pulls back, staring at her in surprise, only for her to soften with a shy smile as she admits there's a dress she has her eye on. The way she laughed was as beautiful as a flower, and he couldn't take his eyes off her. A man watches his plants with a smile, murmuring to himself the leaves have a good color and they are growing strong today as well. His brother hugs him from behind. Jace reminds his brother he told him not to run wild in the greenhouse. His brother dismissively says he heard it before, quickly asking him if it is true that he is going to study abroad in the neighboring country. Jace grumbles it is true, but why is he making such a fuss? His brother retorts because he will get to meet that Christine. He sighs, muttering it is that book again. The book his little brother is so obsessed with is currently a global hit, a trending book. It's about a beautiful woman married off to an ugly, rich middle-aged man who falls in love with her stepson. And the characters are said to be based on real people. Apparently, they are based on the wife and stepson of the Prime Minister at his study abroad destination. He sent a letter expressing his hope to study abroad for a short period in one of the world's leading economic powers, and he received a reply saying that as a prince of friendly nation he would be welcomed. Once he arrives in the neighboring country, there will probably be a welcoming event. He might meet them there. He tells his little brother he's not going there to play around. His brother flatly says he knows that, but it wouldn't hurt to show a little interest. Jace grumbles he would rather look at a plant encyclopedia than read those unhealthy romance novels. His brother remarks he should really start taking more of an interest in romance in women. Nonetheless, no matter how much he is, he will definitely be captivated if he meets Celestine. He thinks a peerless beauty, huh? The model for the book's heroine, Christine, is said to be Celestine. But it is said she is a flashy woman with expensive tastes and not satisfied with just power and wealth. She is said to be living a decadent life, even desiring young men. Honestly, his impression of her is the worst. With a smile, his brother requests him to make sure to tell him all about it when he returns. Jace warns his brother that the stories he is hoping for probably won't be there. And he's going to study for the development of this country. Later, at the welcome banquet, he looks completely off guard. He never thought for the sake of a mere underage prince, such a banquet of this scale would be held. His eyes catch on a tree, and he blinks in surprise, wondering if it's made of candy. It's beautiful, dazzling in its style, and he can't help but think, as expected of one of the world's greatest powers. Also wondering if this level of banquet is always held here. Is their country more backward than he thought? He overhears some guests remarking how tonight's party, though small in number, is lavishly elaborate, a far cry from the stale gatherings of recent years. It dawns on him that this event is something special, even by this country's standards, and he smiles, thinking there must be a master of the art behind it. The men go on to reveal that the party was planned by Lady Celestine herself, at the request of His Majesty the King. They blush as they speak of her, praising her beauty and exquisite taste, and they cannot help but envy the Prime Minister. He is surprised at first but then suspects if it was all just a ploy of that infamous woman to build her reputation. Turning back to the glittering tree, he wonders if she used power or money to have someone create this. He was happy thinking they prepared this venue with welcoming a prince in mind. What a disappointment. Suddenly one of the men exclaims it is Lady Celestine, the goddess of the night has descended. Before even lifting his eyes at her, Jace decides no matter how beautiful her appearance is, there's no charm in a person who lacks substance. He finally looks at her and he stills. He lifts a hand to his chest, startled by the quickened beat of his own heart. His attention shifts to the nearby girls whispering about how Lady Celestine only recently gave birth, yet her figure remains flawless. They gush that her child is a boy, and that her eldest stepson, Mark Sama, is said to be especially fond of her. With dreamy sighs, they add that it's a relief the two seem to share such a good relationship, as together they would make a perfect couple. Once his heartbeat steadies, his expression slips back into neutrality, reminding himself not to be swayed. He turns and greets the Prime Minister, confessing that he never imagined he would meet such an outstanding statesman, an encounter that alone makes his study abroad worth a fortune. The Prime Minister says he prays this experience proves fruitful, and casually mentions that it was his wife who decorated tonight's venue. Jace muses he must say his wife has created wonderful things that caught his eyes, especially the candy crafts. With a glimmer of pride, the Lord adds that his guest has a sharp eye, for those candy pieces were something his wife poured her heart into. Celestine, smiling, remarks that she had heard of the warm climate of his country and thought candy might delight his gaze. Jace admits the towering candy craft is unlike anything he has ever seen, it would melt instantly back home. Then with interest, he asks if she knew the candy design represents their national flower. It is a flower not widely known, yet she seems to know it intimately. Celestine replies she has always loved the flower tree. It blooms naturally for only a short time, then its beauty disappears in an instant. But there is something so endearing about how it blooms so gracefully. Her smile deepens as she adds they have such a lovely national flower, she envies them. His heart skips a beat once again. Some days later, his men inform him the time for his appointment with the Prime Minister is approaching. A few days later after the party, he received an invitation from the Prime Minister to his mansion. It is supposed to be a simple tea, but he wonders why would the busy Prime Minister, even though he is a prince, invite him? Suddenly, a thought flashes through his mind, that with the Prime Minister busy in some work, it is Celestine who accompanies him. The notion jolts him, leaving him startled at himself. What was he even thinking? He steels his mind, reminding himself that adultery is the mark of the lowest of men and that he is finally able to have a conversation with the Prime Minister. As the Prince of Nation, he must make this tea party meaningful. Over tea, the Prime Minister tells him he has prepared some specialty leaves for the occasion and hopes he enjoys them. The Prince thanks him, though he feels a flicker of unease, wondering what is this pressure. Then the Prime Minister introduces his son, Mark. So this is the rumored man, Jace thinks. Mark casually remarks that his stepmother had something she could not miss, so she isn't present today, before offering a smile and a polite apology. Jace's face tightens with discomfort, and he hurriedly insists it is nothing. The Prime Minister smoothly shifts the topic, mentioning that he heard Jace toured the city earlier, and asks how he found it. He replies everything in the shops was fresh to him and above all, the bridges and roads were well maintained and the city was very beautiful. With a smile, the Prime Minister remarks it is impressive that he noticed the maintenance, especially at such a young age. And a well-maintained city generates economic flow, so they must carefully consider how to use taxes. Now that he speaks of it, he heard there is talk of introducing new tax policies in his country as well. He looks surprised when the Prime Minister asks him if he would mind sharing some details for reference. Shaken, he replies that it is still in the discussion phase, though inside he is reeling, such knowledge should only be in the hands of a select few. Yet the Prime Minister continues with another seemingly casual question, each one deepening his shock. At last, he rises abruptly, drawing a concerned glance. The Prime Minister asks if something is wrong. Flustered, he blurts that he is embarrassed to admit it, but he may have grown a little tired. The Prime Minister remarks that fatigue is no good and suggests he take a walk through the garden for a change of pace. His wife is very proud of the garden she designed, he explains. Though she is absent today, the prince is free to enjoy it. Once he leaves, Mark smirks. Attacking him with family matters, his father really has no sense of decorum. The other counters, pure-hearted people like him always take things too seriously. That's why he gave him a little lesson. Outside, Jace thinks he actually ended up running away, realizing he is still so immature. A voice calls out his name and he turns in surprise, only to find Celestine. Later they sit together and he explains he was attending a tea party today. She wonders why neither of them told her. He thinks that must have been on purpose. She then looks down at the child in her arms and explains the child was fussing so she had to excuse herself early. He apologizes but says if the baby was fussing, wouldn't it have been better to leave it to the servants as his mother always did that? But to his shock, she smiles down at the child with eyes full of love and says she wants to raise her child with her own hands as much as possible. She doesn't want to miss any of the growth of this dear child whom she has given birth to. He ends up smiling and says her child being loved by her is very fortunate. Then she shifts the conversation, having heard he is very knowledgeable about plants, and asks if she can ask some stuff. He blurts out he doesn't mind, she can ask him anything. She was wondering if he knows of any succulent plants that help with burns. She explains one is said to be green, spiky, and the inside is something they can eat like a soft fruit. He admits he has never heard of it before and asks her if someone suffered a burn. She smiles and replies it is not a burn. She wants to use it for her husband's medicine. He asks her if the Prime Minister is feeling unwell. She quietly replies yes, it is for her husband's head, but because of the wind he is unable to hear. She then admits she previously developed a drug to slow its progress, but it only served as a temporary measure. And he has this kind personality, so he's pretending to be strong, saying he's ready to let go of everything. But she knows he's privately worrying about the symptoms as they progress. Surprised, Jace asks if it is alright for her to talk to him about something like this. She replies well, it's a well-known fact. Jace cannot help but think he looks so healthy and villainous. He didn't realize the disease had progressed so far. Celestine also reveals the condition has the potential to be hereditary. Recently, Mark has returned to the mansion and the whole family is working together to improve his lifestyle habits. And this child may end just like her husband in the future, but she wants to be there during their grief. At last, she apologizes for talking too much, but he assures her he is glad he got to know her better. And if there is ever anything he can do, he will always be there to help, and with genuine warmth he hopes they might meet again in the future. As he leaves, the Prime Minister and Mark look at her with narrowed eyes, with the Lord muttering in the end they ran into each other, and he did not expect her to come back so soon. Mark asks her what was she talking about. She replies just small talk. Mark tells her she should be aware of how her words and actions can affect someone's life. On the other hand, the prince thinks she was a noble, family-oriented and a beautiful person. He also wonders if the disease worsens and she loses her family in the future, will she live in sadness alone? He decides that for the time that's coming, he needs to strengthen the relationship between the two countries and become the kind of person who can support her by her side. And then he quietly thinks to himself, is wishing for someone's death a sinful act? But he cannot help but wait for that flower. And that concludes the video today. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you want another part. The Prime Minister cradles Luca in his arms, a soft gaze lingering on the child as he murmurs, why is he so adorable? Celestine watches, a small smile tugging at her lips, and remarks that they are such a close father and son, but the moment shifts as Luca suddenly cries, calling for mama, and she scoops him up without hesitation. Mark leans back, commenting dryly that he is troubled by how spoiled Luca is, and no wonder he pushes his father away, and in this case, doesn't it seem he's far too attached to his mother? Celestine murmurs a quiet really, so Mark tells her to watch and reaches out, but Luca jerks his hand away, refusing to get close to anyone else, and when Mark reaches out, Luca jerks his hand away, refusing anyone else, and Mark says that while he respects her wish to raise Luca alone, they have to make sure he can manage without her, or problems will come later. The Prime Minister nods, adding that if she truly loves Luca, she must also think of him when they're apart, and Celestine goes silent, turning the words over in her mind. Mark seizes the pause, suggesting they leave Luca with his father for a few hours so he can grow accustomed to him, a small step that benefits both, and then, smoothly, he proposes they head into the city, reminding her she wanted to see the lives and trends of commoners for herself. The Prime Minister grumbles, questioning why he should accompany her, and Mark answers without hesitation that if she's in disguise, she needs an escort, and he is far better suited than any other man. The Prime Minister's eyes flick to Celestine, insistently telling her to leave Luca with him and reminding her, almost sternly, that everyone needs a break now and then. She hesitates a little, so her husband reassures her not to worry. They have the wet nurse and servants, so it's fine. And as a father, he would make sure to protect him. He wants her to go ahead and enjoy the city with peace of mind. She finally agrees on their insistence. In the city, they move through the streets in disguise, and Celestine's eyes light up as she glances around, a smile tugging at her lips. It's been a while since I've been out here, it's so exciting, she says. She spots a crowd gathering in the distance and asks what's happening. Mark glances over and replies, looks like a popular play. Her eyes widen, and he asks, what's wrong? She leans closer, whispering into his ear from behind, it seems it's the program about our love story. She calls it silly and suggests they go. Mark, already blushing, nods, but his face deepens in color when she strides toward the show instead of away from it. That's the way to the theater, he calls out, flustered, unsure if she really intends to watch. She says they are the subjects of the performance, after all, it's hard not to be curious. His cheeks burn even more, and before he can protest, she continues forward, leaving him calling after her, completely flustered. In the end, he gives in, but the theater is full, leaving them with only standing room space. He imagined her smirking, standing room. There's nothing money cannot solve, expecting some dramatic comment, but she said nothing, much to his surprise. As they watch the story unfold, Mark notes the story similar to that book. And the actions and direction, they are not bad. Mark turns to whisper something to Celestine, but before he can, a loud voice interrupts, catching their attention. A man steps forward and introduces himself as Manchami, the manager of the theater, noting that they appear to be of noble birth, perhaps Lady Celestine and Lord Mark of the Prime Minister's family. Whispers ripple through the crowd, and Mark straightens, saying he got the wrong people. Manchami laughs, knowing he's joking, people as beautiful as them are rare, and he never expected the very subjects of the story to recognize it themselves. How lucky the theater is, he adds, and offers to prepare some tea for them, inviting them to chat in the back room. Mark starts to protest, but Celestine smiles and agrees, saying they should have some tea. Once settled in the back room, Manchami apologizes for making them stand and admits that had he known beforehand, he would have prepared the best seats. He then mentions that he's heard rumors they own an opera house and would be delighted to organize a special performance for them, quietly adding that it could be arranged while the Prime Minister is away. Mark bristles at the remark, but Celestine remains composed. Manchami leans forward, asking how the play went and expressing his desire for their honest opinions. Celestine praises the husband's role, calling the portrayal of adult charm and melancholy exquisite, though it cannot compare to the real thing. Manchami beams, exclaiming that he knew it after all, the actor is the most seasoned in the troupe and renowned for playing villains with unmatched skill. A level of ugliness that makes people feel disgusted cannot be expressed by just any actor. Celestine asks him if he wrote the script. The manager admits although there are talks of that book getting turned into a stage play, but this is an original he wrote himself. He was so moved by the rumor of their tragic love story that he wrote this ending to help in some way with their romance. She asks so they are the models for this story. He exclaims absolutely. She says that she will have to collect her royalty fees, of course. Silence falls. The man hesitates and Celestine coolly says he did not really think she would let it slide after he clearly said they were the models. Normally, the theater would take 50% of the sales, but she announces a discount, letting the manager off for just 30. He freezes, eyes widening, and insists that it's far too much to decide on the spot. She counters coolly, the play isn't even that popular, that closing the theater wouldn't be difficult at all, and yet she is willing to settle for 30%, what reason is there to complain? His face pales further, and he protests that the theater simply won't survive on so little. She suggests increasing attendance instead, and he admits the performance is a masterpiece, but one that surpasses it won't come easily. Mark sighs and mutters to Celestine to take it easy, it's painful to watch. She turns back to the manager and remarks that he will do as she says, won't he? Elsewhere in the city, people murmur about the hottest play right now, the one about Christina and the knight, her stepson. It is considered the hottest play in the city right now. The play everyone in the city is talking about. The Sacrifice of Sho Sai. The story of the protagonist, the handsome middle-aged man Sho Sai who is torn between tragedy and comedy, wrought by his young, beautiful wife. She renders him powerless, draining his wealth, and makes him offer her riches. Eventually, she even has an affair with his son. But in the end, Sho Sai's love reaches his beautiful wife and they have a happy ending. Later, she meets with the manager again, but this time the Prime Minister is present. She tells him she came to see the audience's real reactions and notes that it seems the play was quite a success. The manager hesitates, asking if it was truly okay, the play itself. She assures him it was, and he sighs in relief, grateful that, thanks to her, they've made an incredible profit. Yet he still looks uneasy, pointing out that even though it's based on the original idea she gave him, she is portrayed as the villain. She waves off his concern, saying she doesn't mind at all. He remains hesitant, warning that some critics are directing their disapproval at her, the model. She insists it's fine. Whether slander or insults, it doesn't change that she is always the talk of the town, and people are more drawn to bad rumors than good ones, they spread faster and linger in memory. The more hatred people feel for the villainous wife, the more unjust and unsatisfying the story's ending seems, and they cannot help but talk about it. A bad play, a failure, and there will still be those who curse her, the model, but that, she says, is the goal. She calls it a success. Justice is truly interesting, isn't it? She remarks, and the manager cannot help but agree, saying she is very interesting. She smiles faintly as he explains it's because she doesn't care how others perceive her, the real her is enough as long as her husband knows who she is. Their smiles meet, a quiet understanding passing between them, and the manager's eyes widen as realization hits. She does, however, say there is one thing she would like to mention about the play. The actor playing the husband. She went through all the trouble of creating an original idea to convey her husband's charms. But the actor is way too young and he cannot express the mature subtlety or composure at all. With him as an actor, the character is just a bland young man who has barely graduated from adolescence. She demands an actor with the symbol of his anguish, his head, the physical decline he doesn't care about, and the body that continues to consume calories. She declares he should be showing the complete opposite image of vitality. He watches, stunned, thinking such a fascinating person. For her, any sparks of discontent won't be a problem. Meanwhile, some of the people find out the model of that villainous woman is here at the theater now. A man says if that is true, she has got some nerve to do that and he's going to tell her off. But when they spot her husband and her together, smiling at each other, the man trails off. A lady next to him reminds him, didn't he say he was going to tell her off? However, he says he might actually let himself be played around by someone like her. In stark contrast to the Prime Minister who governs the darkness stands a figure of light to the people, Knight Commander Felix. It has been several years since he stepped down from the Knights, yet the voices praising his achievements have not stopped. The Prime Minister grumbles he dropped by so suddenly that he was startled, thinking it might be some kind of emergency. Felix reminds he's retired from the Knights. Does he really think he would report an emergency to him? The Prime Minister retorts that he told him to give him a heads up in advance, then asks what brings him here today. He says he told him he just wanted to see an old friend's face after so long, and then comments on whether he has lost some weight. It is not like this is a busy time for him, he adds, and if he has any troubles, he will hear him out. The Prime Minister snaps that he has none of those, and if he has come to mock him, then he can leave. Felix, unfazed, insists that he is genuinely concerned for him. Celestine quietly watches him. The nation's hero, the former knight commander Felix. She thinks he called himself an old friend, but it is rare to see someone who can speak so fearlessly with her husband. Felix catches her staring and smiles at her, saying this is their first proper conversation face to face and she truly is as beautiful as the rumors say. He takes a box from the man standing behind him and says it might be a small token of greeting, but he hopes she will accept this. She opens the box to reveal fine stained glass cookies. The Prime Minister grumbles that it is quite a modest gift. She turns to him with a smile and says they're quite popular with women these days, right? He returns her smile, noting they're pretty to look at and taste great too. She thanks him and teases, he really does know women's tastes well, doesn't he? He leans forward, grinning, he just happens to like sweets himself. The Prime Minister is now grumbling incoherently. Suddenly, he sharply calls Celestine's name, reminding her, isn't it about time for that usual merchant to arrive? She blinks, surprised, is it already that hour? He explains that the jewelry that bankrupted that queen of a foreign kingdom, the merchant was supposed to bring it today, and excitement floods her face, she has been waiting for it desperately and is thrilled beyond measure, while Felix watches quietly, his expression unreadable. A few days later, Clara waves at Celestine, who brings her child, explaining that he insisted on coming and asks if that is okay, and Clara replies, of course, she had suggested a cafe date during the recent tea party, so they are here. Suddenly, someone calls out to her, and she turns to see Felix and asks is he alone today? And he replies he is just doing a little sweets tour. She then asks if he is perhaps heading to the cafe on the corner. He confirms and, in a louder, excited voice, adds that their creme brulee is absolutely divine. Realizing he raised his voice, he apologizes. She smiles and says if he would like, he can join them. He says he will graciously take her up on her offer. Over tea, he remarks that to have tea with such beautiful ladies, he is truly a lucky man. He then turns to Luca, saying of course he's happy to see him too. Luca flicks his hand away from Felix without a second thought. Celestine gives a gentle scolding, and Felix admits the boy brings memories of Mark as a child. Celestine replies though they have different mothers, they are still brothers, so there are bound to be similarities, are not there? Shifting the conversation, she says she heard he has been an old friend of her husband. He replies yes, he has known just about everything about him since they were kids. Including, of course, his past romances. He holds her hand and says to be honest, he was worried about her. He thought his behavior might have hurt her emotionally. Back when he was with his previous wife, he was quite nonchalant about his repeated affairs. So what does she think? He might not have a young body like Mark's, but tonight would she grant him the honor of easing her pain? Clara springs to her feet, outraged, accusing him of being rude since earlier, but Celestine remains calm, a steady smile on her lips as she says, why would he try to court me when he doesn't even mean it? He says he is serious. Her eyes narrow, and she tells him plainly that if he has something to say, he should say it clearly. He laughs, low and amused, remarking that the old man lacks the charm to test her properly, and that he will be direct. He asks if she has ever had a physical relationship with Mark. Clara fumes beside her, but Celestine meets him without flinching, replying, she has not. He presses further, asking if Luca's father is truly him. She replies firmly, of course, swearing to God before him that she has been devoted to her husband alone. He studies her silently, the weight of her unwavering composure giving him pause, before he shuts his eyes and murmurs an apology for his disrespectful behavior. She teases, are they finished already? He replies he sensed anger in her eyes. Not anger at her own insult, but at his mocking of him. He has been like that since forever. He overheard rumors about her and Mark. And he was worried that he might be being used for someone else's gain. Once again, he truly apologizes. Clara shakes in her place, thinking just because Celestine forgives him doesn't mean she does. Celestine says he's such a thoughtful friend. However, he claims that might not be entirely accurate because he was never closest with him. Though as an apology, he would share an old story. She smiles, saying she would love to know anything about her husband. Felix's first meeting with him began when they entered the aristocratic school. He hates to say it himself, but he was what they would call an honor student. The type who always had people around them. On the other hand, he was there. He never cared about others' feelings. He was eccentric and always isolated at school. Some admired his attitude, but to be honest, Felix didn't like him. What changed his impression of him happened on the winter's day. During the long break, when the other students returned home, only he and the Prime Minister remained in the dormitory, as they did every year. He was sad as there was no contact from his parents this year either. Felix's parents had no interest in him as a person. Having a talented child enrolled in a prestigious school was all that mattered to them. Even if he went home, there was nothing to talk about. So he decided to stay and read a book alone. He kept convincing himself he didn't need it, love or anything like that. His eyes landed on a glass ornament, which was something a classmate displayed saying it was beautiful. He remembers him happily talking about how he picked it out with his parents on a trip. It was done almost unconsciously, as if drowned to it. He reached out and picked the ornament. And he ended up breaking it. A thrill he had never experienced before rushed through him. And then he found him standing there, watching him. Panicked, he pleaded with him not to tell anyone about this. However, would he care about someone's plea? That night he was distraught because if what he did got exposed, the honor student image he had maintained would be destroyed. If that happened, his parents would abandon him completely in every sense of the word. When the students returned and the boy spotted his ornament shattered in the corner of the classroom, he threw a huge fuss. Felix was preparing to apologize, but before he could, one of the students pointed out that it was obvious who the culprit was. Only 2 students had stayed during the break, and there was no way Felix would do something like that. They turned to him, demanding, "He did it, didn't he?" Felix began to admit it, but before he could, the Prime Minister casually remarked that he had always thought that tacky ornament was an eyesore, and it was refreshing now that it was gone. He challenged the boy to say it to his face if he had something to say, but warned that words had consequences. If it affected his parents' position, he shouldn't complain. And if he dared, he could have his family sent on a trip to some rural area where they probably sell ornaments like that, though they might not be able to return here afterward. Later, Felix asked why the Prime Minister had covered for him, but the Prime Minister cut him off, claiming he had never meant to cover for him and he never admitted to breaking it himself either. Felix insisted that if things stayed as they were, he would be perceived as the bad guy. Just before, when he had tried to explain everything, no one had thought him worth defending, and no one had listened. Suddenly, the Prime Minister shrugged and said, "It's fine, isn't it? The world needs a balance between good and evil. He has to stay as the good guy or the balance between students of the school would fall apart. And if their roles overlap, he will end up being overshadowed by him." Felix asked him if he was really okay with that. He said, accepting the misunderstanding and settling into being the bad guy. For the first time, he smiled and declared, rising as a villain and tramping the world underfoot wasn't a bad option either. And challenged him to rise as well, and face him as the justice. Even after that, they never really deepened their friendship. One became a corrupt bureaucrat while the other joined the knights to uphold justice. Because they were opposites of each other, they often clashed and argued. Eventually, the era descended into great chaos and war. To protect his comrades, he clung to his belief in justice and fought desperately with everything he had. Then the war came to an end and he was praised by the people as a hero. While he was recklessly raging on the battlefield, there was a man working behind the scenes to stop the war. He took the position of power from his war-hungry father and demoted him, then negotiated tirelessly with other nations to bring about peace. Because of him, the war ended much sooner than expected. Instead of praise, he was condemned for using the war as an excuse to disgrace his father. The one who should truly be called a hero is not him but the Prime Minister. He laughs and says most of that was an embarrassing tale about him, but he wanted her to know the truth. He really is a good guy and Felix just wants her to make him happy. Her sudden giggle catches him off and he asks what is so funny. She replies she just feels relieved by his naive perception of her husband. That man is far from a good guy. He is not so one-dimensional. Regarding her father-in-law, she has asked about him a little as well. And he mentioned that he had been targeting his ill-tempered father since childhood. And his tales of using the chaos of the war to settle old grudges with his parents. He often brings them up when he's drunk. And as for his stories from his student days, they sound too good, don't they? She asks him wasn't that simply more convenient for him to act like that? Now that she mentioned it, Felix recalls the student with the ornament used to spread rumors and badmouth him. But after the incident, he visibly started to fear him and anyone else thought he was too dangerous and didn't talk about him so openly. At the time it seemed like he was being treated like someone to be avoided and he pitied him. A brief smirk settles on Celestine's face as she declares if anyone dares insult her husband as evil, she will join him with a smile and trample all of them. And if the time comes for her husband to fall, they will hold hands and go together, whether to hell or anywhere else. And there they will be together, make the flowers of evil bloom once more. Felix watches her as if seeing her for the first time. A man steps into the room with confident ease, announcing that he has come to pick her up. They turn to see the Prime Minister, who, of course, has brought a souvenir as well, a huge, tempting cookie. She says didn't he have some work today? He replies he heard she went to a cafe, so he hurried over. Felix narrows his eyes, silently thinking, what is he even thinking? Clara calls out with a dry edge, saying that apparently he will end up labeled a thieving cat, accused by Celestine for targeting the Prime Minister. Felix points at himself, completely dumbfounded, and protests that he is just a middle-aged knight. She flatly says in the face of love, age and gender are completely irrelevant. She then mumbles and yet another flame of jealousy burns. Felix looks up to see the Prime Minister holding the souvenir right in front of his face and says, look, his is bigger and more expensive. Felix turns around, doubling over in laughter. He's competing over something like this. Even though they are such a mismatched couple, surprisingly they are two of a kind. Felix thinks so this side of his friend exists too. He really underestimated his perception of him. Even if people don't praise them, they have their own happiness. It has been so long since he has felt this light-hearted. The day the king declared his first son was getting married to none other than the Queen of Soli. His nightmares began on that day. The Queen of Soli and her husband arrive at the palace. She surveys the grandeur around her, thinking that, as expected, the festival of a great nation's foundation is truly splendid. Countless nobles and high-ranking officials seem to have been invited. She smirks and murmurs, wouldn't it be fun to tame them all in bed? The people around her visibly flinch, and she quickly adds, just kidding. One of the men leans closer and says that the rumors about her being unrestrained in her desires truly seem true. Another man beside him whispers, and taming, too, and the other rumors are true too, that she enjoys watching her partners cry and scream at night. She especially gets fired up with high-ranking or strong-willed people. Meanwhile, the queen notices the prince isn't around, and he came on the same ship with them, and it is their nation's foundation festival. One of the husbands replies he heard he wasn't feeling well and stayed in his room after arriving. She pauses, pretending to think, and asks whether she should punish him when they return. Then, a smile spreads across her face as she adds that she's in a good mood today. The much younger wife of this country's prime minister, Celestine. They say she is a perfect blend of talent and beauty, beloved by many and happily married. In order to indulge in luxury and being able to go to such great lengths, she seems so strong-willed, it sends shivers down her spine. The queen wishes to get to know her closer. Just then, Celestine appears and greets the queen with a curtsy. The prime minister introduces himself and Celestine. The queen can't help but think how beautiful Celestine is. And yet her husband is mismatched in appearance and age. She must be hiding a wealth of dark feelings inside, she is sure of it. The queen takes her hand in her, saying the pleasure is all hers. The prime minister doesn't like it as he quickly takes his wife's hand back. The queen wishes to expose every side of her. The prime minister says the pleasure is all theirs as a husband and a wife. Celestine freezes for a moment, realizing he is being jealous, and then can't help but smile. The queen is surprised by her reaction. It almost looked like she genuinely loves that hideous creature. But she convinces herself that it's impossible and people act as much as they need to for money or status. All the sweet-faced ones who cozied up to her, with just a little whip, their masks would come off and they would start cursing her with all their might. She thinks all she needs to do is shake them up a bit and remarks, such a lovely and harmonious couple, aren't they? But their nightlife must have cooled down a bit by now. She suggests how about the two of them join her in her bedroom tonight. It's what they would call adding a little spice to their love. She even offers Celestine the choice of any one of her husbands. The prime minister steps forward, placing himself firmly between Celestine and the queen, and asks sharply, just what is she planning? And he wouldn't let anyone lay a hand on his wife. She tells him not to be angry, claiming sometimes reconnecting through others can deepen love. He flatly says they are fine and they don't need that. Suddenly, Celestine asks, so they are inviting us to spend the night as a group of 4? Her husband turns to her in shock. The queen quickly answers, yes, and if she wishes, she can choose as many partners as she likes. The queen thinks to herself, just as she thought, she's like the others. But Celestine's eyes flare with sudden fury, and she screams that she would never hand over her husband. Trembling with anger, she declares that she knows exactly what the queen is plotting, trying to distract her with other men so she can add her husband to her harem. The queen protests, insisting she is mistaken, but Celestine cuts her off, repeating firmly that she will not allow it. Her husband is completely devoted to her, and even if the queen is powerful or close to his age, his heart belongs entirely to her. She asks her husband, "Isn't that right?" And he quickly replies, "Of course." She then announces that she's not feeling well and that they will take their leave, promptly taking her husband with her. The queen stares in shock, wondering what is with that girl, preferring that hideous creature over her grand husband's. Is she serious? Meanwhile, Celestine seethes with anger. The very idea of her husband joining the queen's harem is absurd. He belongs to her alone. Suddenly, a man approaches and says he was asked to deliver a note to her, handing it over. She unfolds it and sees that it says he is waiting at the place where they first met. She recognizes the familiar handwriting and arrives at the place, where she finds the first prince, his eyes glistening as if on the verge of tears at the sight of her. This was where they had first been introduced as fiancés. He says she remembered, it makes him so happy. She replies Crown Prince, but he replies he is no longer the Crown Prince. Now he is the 13th husband of the Queen of Soil. Celestine explains that she came out of curiosity, wondering what he wanted after all this time. He doesn't seem well, and she asks softly if the air in Soil had not been good enough for him. He admits, with a sad gaze, that what awaited him there were days of hell. Being with someone his parents' age was humiliating, but that's the only role he was given. He is her husband in name only and treated more like a male concubine. During those painful days, all he could think about was her. He was truly foolish back then. He trapped her in the same position he is in now. And he mocked her for it. Now he finally understands how cruel that was. Though he cannot ask her to forgive him, he at least wants her to accept his apology. She quietly tells him to raise his head. She does not hold a grudge about her past. Surprised, he asks really. She replies yes, thinking after all he brought her together with her husband. If only he hadn't tried to harm him, he could still be living in this castle. He suddenly says that she must have suffered terribly too, bearing the Prime Minister's child. Before she can answer, he grabs her hands, his grip desperate, and insists that they should run away together. He doesn't think he can survive here. She pushes him back and tells him to stop, demanding, "Why her? What happened to the other girl?" With a sad expression, he says she is no good. Ever since it was decided he would go to Soil, all she did was berate him. Luckily for her, the queen quickly lost interest in her. But she used being ignored as an excuse to get involved with the other husbands, one after another. Completely immersing herself in Soil's debauched lifestyle, he suddenly confesses that he had been deceived by her and now finally understands that Celestine and he were truly meant to be together. Once again, he pleads with her to run away with him. Celestine is aware he's just clinging to the past because he cannot face the reality before him. She replies to be honest, the way that girl has adapted to Soy makes her seem more resilient and admirable. She wonders what is the best way to deal with this hopeless ex-fiancé. With a smile, she tells him that it is an honor to know he thinks so highly of her. This garden party commemorating the nation's foundation has its doors open even to merchants who are not nobility, and opportunities like this rarely come along. They must approach it with everything they have. Later, some onlookers spot the queen and the prince talking and whisper among themselves, "Aren't those the former crown prince and the queen of Soil?" They heard rumors about him living a terrible life under the queen, but they seem to be getting along surprisingly well. One of the men asks what happened to that baron's daughter who went with him. The man next to him replies he saw her earlier walking in the rose garden with some other men. The husbands accompanying her say she is so innocent and adorable. The day it was decided that she would go to Soli, she was thrown into the depths of despair. But who would have thought this awaited her? However, the husband's attention drifts the moment Celestine's name is mentioned. Celestine, the name truly suits her, one thinks. Another husband remarks that such beauty perfectly matches her, but the first one says he wasn't at last night's party, so he wouldn't know. She is as beautiful as this rose, speak of the devil, and Celestine appears. The daughter of the baron clenches her fist, silently fuming that the girl always seems to get in her way. She's also mad at the smug expression that she has while standing beside that old man. She thinks she's happier than someone like Celestine. She mentions to the man that she actually has a bit of a connection with Lady Celestine and asks if they would like to greet her together. The Baron's daughter steps forward and greets Celestine, saying it has been a while and apologizing for not recognizing her at first, adding that she has become so beautiful. Mark stands beside her, and she asks if they have come as a couple today. Celestine flatly says she come with her sons. The Baron's daughter watches Mark, struck by his striking beauty, and wonders silently who he is. But then it hits her, the book. Wasn't the book about her falling in love with her stepson or something? If that's true, she's living a life of luxury on the Prime Minister's money, and on top of that, she has made a young lover and even has a child. She remarks that their baby is beautiful and demands to hold him, but Celestine's expression shifts sharply, and she tells her she cannot touch him. Celestine points out that the ring she's wearing might hurt Luca. Dramatic tears fill the girl's eyes as she says that wasn't her intention, and adds that she really hasn't changed, has she? Once again, she casts her as the villain. Even back then, when she had clumsily fallen in love, she had banded together with others to corner her. Yet she forgave her, and still, here she is, targeting her and trying to bring her down. Mark lets out a sigh and tells Celestine they should go somewhere else, but she tells Mark no, she would like to hear a bit more. She gives the child to Mark and requests him to take care of Luca and to find the quiet spot and let him nap. Before he leaves, he warns Celestine not to overdo it. After a moment, Celestine says she has always wanted to have a proper talk with her. Without warning, she drops her head in apology and says back then she was so young and terribly immature. She was so fixated on staying on the predetermined path to becoming the crown princess that she convinced herself she absolutely had to be with him and ended up doing something so foolish. The girl, taken aback by the apology, finally allows a smug smile to appear on her face. That's right, she says, she had thrown all her jealousy at her, one-sidedly, and now asks if Celestine has any idea how she felt. Celestine casually says but there is one thing that still bothers her. When she was accused of those crimes, there were so many charges that she had no memory of committing. Like stealing her late grandmother's keepsake pendant or pushing her down the stairs. Or inciting a runaway horse to make it try to trample her. Or sending thugs to attack her. She pretends to think hard and asks could it be that there were others who tried to harm her besides her? The girl snaps she can only imagine someone as vile as her could do such terrible things. Even the prince at that time said it must have been her. She turns to the onlookers watching and asks aren't they the ones who agreed with her, calling her a terrible woman when she told them about her? The prince shows up just as the girl storms forward to him and says Lady Celestine is being awful to her. He doesn't even glance at her, stepping past with nonchalance. Bowing his head at Celestine, he says he is truly sorry for what happened during the annulment of their engagement and wants to formally apologize. He admits back then he was completely intoxicated by her words of love, and he became utterly blind to everything else. The girl snaps, demanding why is he apologizing? Is he going to make her look like the villain too? The prince meets her gaze and tells her that she needs to take a more objective look at herself. She is so shallow, and he has long since woken up to the truth. Fuming, she snaps, calling him a traitor and blaming him for the entire situation. She tells him to stop lecturing her while putting himself on a pedestal. He responds calmly that is right. He is very weak. He spent his life running from fate until now. That is why he has decided to follow his destiny and show love to the Queen of Soil. Growth as a person is the goal, as Celestine has achieved. She scoffs. He, who was abandoned by the king, is already useless. Turning to the men around her, she declares that with their support, becoming the Queen of Soil is no longer just a dream and after all, they are soil nobles. One of the men shakes his head and says she is mistaken. They are nothing more than the consorts in soil. No more, no less. They only interacted with her because she was his partner, who is a foreign country's royal. Without that connection, there's no reason for them to continue their relationship with her. Her face pales. Whispers ripple through the crowd, and unable to vent her anger elsewhere, the girl turns it towards Celestine. She thinks if only she didn't exist. Celestine observes her coldly, thinking that the girl mistakes greed for love, never understanding what true love is, and even being abandoned by someone she once took from another. Without warning, the girl lunges at Celestine, and the guards rush to restrain her. She turns to her husband, who has fallen while protecting her, and asks softly if she is unharmed. She says her husband protected her and presses a kiss to her cheek, leaving everyone around them shocked. As Celestine watches the girl being led away, she wonders what will become of her. The Prime Minister remarks that the girl will likely be released after a few days of detention. Judging by her demeanor, she probably knows nothing of her family's situation. After her release, she will be divorced by both the crown prince and the queen. Her family will be dispersed. And with her own suspected involvements in their crimes, no one will lend her a hand. And what happens after that is something they don't need to concern themselves with. Celestine still feels a little sad because she did not entirely dislike her honesty about her desires. The Prime Minister notices the Queen standing with a sad expression and asks if something is the matter, pointing out that she seems unwell. She turns to Celestine and asks, does she truly love the Prime Minister? Celestine smiles. Of course. Why would she ask such a thing? The Queen supposes she may have given up long ago. She always thought that someone who could truly care for someone like her with this appearance couldn't possibly exist in this world. So to fill that void, she drowned herself in pleasures with many people, hurting them to protect herself. She glances at the Prime Minister, saying she envies him for being loved by someone so beautiful. He must be incredibly happy. He replies calmly, he is, but this happiness isn't just because of her beauty. It is the miracle of connecting deeply with someone he loves. That is what fills him with indescribable joy. She says that's right, if she had someone like that, even someone like her could. But all that she has ever known is controlling others with power. It's a foolish hope for her. Celestine leans closer to the Queen and reassures her, not at all. She is sure someone like that will come into her life, then casts a quick glance at the prince, whispering, perhaps they are even closer than she realizes. The Queen blushes as he steps forward and takes her hand. He says, loving just one person can be a wonderful thing, too. He is not saying there's anything wrong with expressing love physically with many partners. But would it be wrong if he was the only one? Celestine smiles, her mind drifting back to the flashback. She recalls telling him that it had been an honor to know he thought so much of her. Hope shone in his eyes, but she said the scars from his betrayal still lingered on her heart, and the painful memories from that time held her back from trusting completely. Desperate, he asked what he should do and how he could regain her trust, insisting he was willing to do anything for her. She told him to fulfill the mission he had been given. When he looked confused, she told him that he should have realized why his father had sent him, the crown prince, to the Queen. It was because his father believed he could control soil from within, which was why His Majesty had made the agonizing decision to send him. The prince burst out that the king had never said such a thing and that, besides, the Queen's authority in soil was far too strong, leaving no room to exploit. She leaned closer and explained that he must use his incredible charm to win over Her Majesty the Queen's heart, and that if he succeeded, they would meet again at this place of memories. In the present, the Queen looks down and murmurs, to love just one person, can that truly be done? He looks at her and murmurs he hopes that person will be him, calling her his beloved Queen. Celestine recalls also explaining that Soli is not only rich in fabrics but abundant in gold. If he brings that wealth into their nation, it will lead to great profits. If he accomplishes this mission admirably, she believes she will finally be able to trust him with all her heart. The prince asked would that make things right between them. She lied, yes. The Queen's gaze drifts to a nearby flower bed. That one over there, nothing is planted yet. Celestine smiles and notes apparently, the seeds have just been sown. The Queen murmurs in that case, she looks forward to seeing what kind of flowers will bloom. Celestine quietly wonders what flowers will appear. If they turn out golden, it would be simply wonderful. She cries out she cannot bear the thought of being apart from him. The Prime Minister, looking emotional himself, tells her not to cry. If she says something like that, that will make it hard for him to leave too. Mark asks them what are the two doing so early in the morning. He mutters it is just the annual inspection. He is only leaving the estate for a short while. The Prime Minister grumbles he doesn't want to go to work. Mark tells him not to say childish things. After he leaves, Mark sighs in relief that he is gone and then says he used to barely come home except for work, and now he has really changed, hasn't he? Celestine asks really. So Mark explains, before she came back, when his mother was around, things were truly terrible. Now that Celestine thinks about it, she hasn't heard much about his former wife. She asks Mark what kind of person was she. Mark is honest and replies she wasn't someone worth praising. She was a spendthrift and self-centered. Always harsh on the servants. In the end, she had an affair with a young artist she was sponsoring and disappeared with father's money. Celestine smiles and asks what happened after that. Mark says who knows, by then he had already joined the Knights and wasn't living at the estate anymore. But with that personality, he is sure she is stubbornly surviving somewhere. Meanwhile, a woman notices makeup on her maid's face and yanks at it sharply, demanding, "What is with that makeup? Isn't it a bit too flashy for a mere servant?" She snaps, "Servants are supposed to move like shadows. It is unthinkable for one to stand out," and orders the maid to wipe it off immediately. Two other maids watch, one muttering under her breath about someone who eloped after an affair daring to lecture them on common sense. The woman, catching the remark, picks up a fruit, crushes it in her hand, and flings it to the floor. "The floor is dirty," she says. "If there's time to chatter, there's time to clean." After she leaves, the maids whisper among themselves. One asks why is master with someone like her. The other shrugs. Who knows? He's the type to become blindly attached to whoever he likes. Artists are impossible to understand. Behind her husband, Camilla steps into view, admiring the painting. She says, "What a lovely painting." He looks up, a smile spreading across his face. "It's the motif," he replies. "Thanks to those exotic flowers she imported for him." He calls her sense truly genuine. They were once an unknown painter and his patron. Amid a broken marriage with her ex-husband, she was drawn to him. Young, beautiful, and talented. He loved her too. Together they fled to his homeland, changed his pen name and started anew. He grew into a famous artist known by everyone in this region. Those common tales of struggling after fleeing, that's not about her. She achieved love and a luxurious life through her own power. But it is still not enough. Financially, she is far from the life she had back then. She can't stop wanting more and more, nibbling at her fingers in nervous anticipation. She wonders what she should do next. Just then, her husband informs him the other day he received a direct job request from the crown prince. She exclaims, "That's amazing. So why does he look so unhappy?" He admits he wants to gift a portrait to the lady who took care of him while he was studying abroad, so he asked him to travel there to paint it personally. But the lady is the wife of her ex-husband, the prime minister of the neighboring country. He blurts, what should he do? He's a man who had an affair with the prime minister's wife. There's no way that cruel man would ever forgive him. Last time he was lucky to escape, but this time he will surely kill him. Camilla silently thinks his current wife, the little girl named Celestine or something. She used her youth to charm that man, and rumor has it she's even manipulating Mark and doing whatever she praises. Suddenly an idea hits her. Why didn't she notice this before? Mark is being easily manipulated by that little girl. If she as his mother show a few tears, he might even be able to control the prime minister's family fortune. She tells her husband he should definitely take this offer and she will go with him so he doesn't need to worry. Holding his face, she lifts his gaze to her and tells him to just do as she says. Has she ever failed him before? She assures him it is fine at this time of year that man should be away from the estate for work. Meanwhile Mark stiffens at the mention of a portrait. She continues that Prince Jace said it is a token of gratitude for his time spent here. And apparently this artist is skilled and works quickly, finishing his portrait swiftly without burdening even small children. She believes he should be arriving soon. Mark sinks deeper into his thoughts, only to be pulled back when the maid appears, announcing that his guest has arrived. The maid pauses, unsure how to begin, but Mark waves her off, saying he already has a general idea and will join as well. Outside, Celestine meets the painters, who explains he has come at Prince Jace's request. Her eyes drift to the woman beside him, and she asks quietly who she might be. Camilla, already focused on her son, murmurs that it has been far too long since she last saw him. Celestine flinches at the word mother on Mark's lips. The maid whispers under her breath, incredulous, wondering why Celestine would appear at the estate with that painter. Normally she would be furious about anything bad related to her husband, but now her silence is scarier in its own way. The painter, caught in a trance, studies Celestine as if she were a white lily, pure, serene. He wonders why he feels so captivated, reminding himself he must finish the painting before the Prime Minister returns. When the rough sketch is complete, he pauses, startled by the image before him. Gentle eyes gazing at her child, he is sure he captured the pure image of a mother and child as it appeared before him. But still, it feels like he hasn't expressed her accurately. He wonders what is missing. What does he need to capture her charm? Celestine closes her eyes, recalling Mark's words about his mother running away with the young artist she was sponsoring. When she opens them again, her gaze is lethal. The painter asks if it would be alright to make one more rough sketch. Her blazing eyes lock onto his, and she replies, of course, he can take as much time as he wants. His smile falters, frozen completely, caught off guard by the intensity in her expression. From the image of pure innocence, she turned in an instant into something murky and venomous, like a poisonous flower. He realizes he cannot just depict one side of her. What should he do? This is the first time he has been this excited. He wants to paint all of her onto the canvas. He is inwardly sorry to Camilla. He may have met the perfect model at the worst possible time. Mark watches his mother closely, and asks if she is truly alright with not staying by the artist's side. She meets his gaze calmly and says yes, he is at work after all. She can make those distinctions too. She asks him why did he ask such a thing. He hesitates, murmuring it is nothing before abruptly changing the topic and asking what her purpose is in coming to the estate, and she lets out a small, amused sigh, reminding him it is a parent-child reunion after so long and that she came because she was worried about him. Pretending to think, she mentions Celestine, wondering aloud about the rumors she has heard concerning him and the young woman, to which he flatly replies the stories are completely unfounded and that Celestine is nothing like that. Camilla observes his protectiveness and remarks on it quietly, suggesting he may indeed be infatuated, prompting Mark to narrow his eyes and demand what she is implying. She gestures to the estate around them, noting how the interior, the furnishings, everything, is being quietly overtaken by that little girl, explaining it is only possible because the household atmosphere is not firm enough to resist her control. Mark declares he has no intention of inheriting the house, but she counters firmly, insisting that it is not his decision to make, that appearances and the wishes of the man in charge matter more, then softens, saying a mother's child is always the most precious to her. When that man dies, the existence of his eldest son will be nothing but an obstacle to her. Mark quietly asks his mother if she is saying Celestine would kill him for her son's sake. She reminds him she is someone who could easily be killed by that man, and yet she risked everything to come to see him. She admits she was certainly not a praiseworthy mother, but still, cannot they reclaim the time they have lost? He recalls a memory of searching for his mother while the maids hesitated, stammering that she was at a friend's house, and the recollection makes him suddenly burst into laughter, saying this must be what she had so boldly wished to discuss. His gaze hardens as he asks if she is attempting to cozy up to him in order to seize control of the house. Her face pales as she rushes to deny it, but his sharp glare cuts her short, and he reminds her that he is no longer a child crying out for his mother's affection. He warns her not to disappoint him further, then echoes her own earlier words, noting that the mansion has changed from its interior to its furnishings, that everything and everyone within it, his father, the servants, and even himself, belong to another now. With cold finality, he tells her there is no opening for her to exploit, and addresses her not as his mother but as Lady Camilla. Camilla spins around, calling for Mark, but he only replies that the prince's orders leave him no choice, and she must behave until the painting is finished, adding that she should abandon any other strange schemes. Her only answer is a scowl heavy with anger. A few days later, the painting is finally complete. The artist steps back with satisfaction and declares that it has turned out wonderfully. Celestine agrees, remarking that it feels as though she might hear Lucas's gentle breathing in his sleep at any moment. The painter smiles, claiming it to be his finest work, and the words makes his wife flinch where she stands. Suddenly, Camilla declares that the painting is finished and insists they prepare to return to their country at once. But before anyone can move, the door opens and the Prime Minister steps inside. Celestine greets him with surprise, noting that he has returned earlier than expected. He answers the annual event was nothing extraordinary this year, so he shortened it. From his coat he produces a teddy bear that almost looks like him and offers it to Luca. The boy takes one glance before tossing it aside without interest, only then he notices the others in the room. The Prime Minister greets them, remarking that it has been a while. Celestine explains that the prince requested a portrait of herself and Luca. The Prime Minister accepts the explanation with a mild tone and approaches the painter. Looking down at him, he remarks that it seems Celestine enjoyed herself in his absence. Seeing the man's pale face, he tells him not to be tense, assuring him that he holds no grudges. He even admits that he still owns several of his works, and, believe it or not, respects his talent. The painter blurts that he committed an unforgivable act, but the Prime Minister says that at the time he had neglected his household, so part of the blame was his own. Now, with Celestine at his side, he has learned what it means to be a husband, what it means to be family. For that, he is grateful, for all the bonds his beloved wife has created for him, including theirs. With those words, he takes Luca into his arms, saying it is time for the boy's nap, and leaves the room. Celestine turns to the painter and tells him that normally before letting him into this estate, she would have had him dealt with considering what he did to her husband. That's only fair, isn't it? But her husband liked his paintings, so he should be grateful for his talent. Camilla snaps at the insolence of such words and whirls toward her husband, demanding that they leave immediately. Yet the painter stands rooted, unable to move. Later, the maids whisper among themselves, noting how strangely their master has behaved since returning from the neighboring country. Once, he would lose himself in painting for hours, but now he does not even respond to his wife's calls. Their whispers turn into stifled giggles, finding the thought oddly satisfying. Meanwhile, Camilla lingers outside his door, calling softly, asking if he is well. She apologizes for the incident with that little girl, insisting it was her idea to accept the commission in the first place. She even tries to soothe him, suggesting they import more beautiful flowers from abroad. At last, his patience snaps. His voice cuts through the door, ordering her to shut up. Shocked, she stands frozen, unable to understand what has become of him. Inside, his room is buried beneath countless sketches of Celestine, her image haunting every corner. There is an artist indispensable to the history of art of this world. He gained fame at a young age, but one day he suddenly disappeared from the public stage. He caused a stir in society once more after his death, when over 200 paintings were discovered in his room. All of them depicted a noble woman from an esteemed family. The woman he painted was portrayed either as a saint, cherishing her child, or a sinister yet beautiful femme fatale, appearing as if she was two completely different persons, sparking debates in modern historical studies about her true character. It is said that he never parted with that lady's paintings until his death, living a life of considerable poverty. Yet he would say he has found a thing to dedicate his life to and continued painting that lady until his death. His wife's memoir described him as he had been bewitched by a devil. Her innocent eyes are fixed on the roses as she exclaims that the flowers her father has grown are the most beautiful she has ever seen. Smiling, he tells her that this rose was cultivated with her in mind. Eyes sparkling, she asks her father to write a story with this rose as the main character. The request barely leaves her lips before her mother snaps, scolding her not to burden him with such impossible demands. But the child insists, reminding them that she has already read every book in the house and that the last story he wrote for her was wonderful. At last, the father sighs in defeat and promises he will try to have the story ready by her birthday. Overjoyed, the little girl exclaims she loves him. Her mother protests that he is spoiling her far too much, but the father only laughs. A simple, ordinary day filled with laughter over trivial stories. He thought they could walk through time together forever. As he stood before the graves of his wife and child, people quietly murmured that both had been lost to the epidemic. The story he promised to write remains unfinished, forever by his side. It has been over 10 years since then. For certain reasons, he is now working as a gardener for the Prime Minister's household. He turns quietly at the sound of Celestine's voice telling her son to stop, only for Luca to launch himself at him like a tiny cannonball. Hans Len spins just in time to catch the boy. Celestine hurries forward with an apology, but Hans Len manages a stiff, "It's fine." She says it is strange he usually doesn't warm up to men. He hands Luca back to her. She smiles and says, "Is it all right if she watches him work again today?" With a polite smile, he replies of course. Normally a gardener wouldn't work in front of their master. But one day he fell behind on his tasks and ran into her unexpectedly. The maid was scolding him for not greeting her properly, but Celestine gently intervened, saying it was fine. She explained that she must have startled him by appearing so suddenly and, instead of expecting an apology, she offered one to him herself. Then, with a bright smile, she told him the flowers he had grown were absolutely beautiful. For a moment, he was left speechless, struck by how much she resembled his daughter in that instant. If his daughter was alive, she would be about this age by now. Seeing his daughter's image in his master might be inappropriate, but this gentle movement soothes his heart, to the point where he almost forgets his original goal. One afternoon, a man stopped him on the street, his eyes narrowing in recognition before a sharp laugh escaped. "Paul. So he's alive after all." He couldn't believe there was still someone who hasn't been caught yet and asked him with a sly grin what was he doing to make a living. Thieving? Or was it drugs? Paul, calm and measured, said only that he worked as a gardener in the Prime Minister's estate. At that, the man's grin grew wider. He quickly realized he was planning to take revenge on the Prime Minister. He suddenly announced he would take him to the gang, and then introduced him to the gang, boasting to the others that Paul was working as a gardener in the Prime Minister's estate. And he's planning revenge all on his own. After losing his family and falling into despair, he hit rock bottom. The ones who took him in were part of a so-called antisocial organization. Have illegal drugs, trafficking and kidnapping VIPs. For someone like him who wanted to escape the pain, violence was convenient. But those days came to an abrupt end. Their bases were taken down one after another, and the organization was annihilated in an instant. The one who led the crackdown was the country's prime minister. Once again, without a place to go, he plotted his revenge on the prime minister. He used an alias and infiltrated as a gardener, intending to kill him. That's what he had planned to do. The man clinging to Paul says with him here, they can clear the entry rules into the estate and all the other obstacles. Paul watches him with unease. And finally asks what is he planning to do. The man simply says they will kidnap his wife and kid and then kill them. After extorting the ransom, they will send their corpses back. Doesn't that sound amazing? Paul starts to protest, but the man cuts in with a sharp look. What's this, checking out? Or did he start feeling sorry for the brats? His mouth twists into an evil smirk. No way. That's not it, right? Back then, they always had each other's backs. His eyes narrow as he leans closer. He will do it right. Cornered by the weight of his stare, Paul spills what he knows. The Prime Minister is usually occupied during the day, leaving the household's defenses thinner than at night. During that time, Celestine enjoys tea in the garden with Luca, and if there's ever a chance to strike, that's when the man's grin sharpens. Hiding behind the bushes, he tilts his head toward Paul and lowers his voice telling him to stick to the plan and distract the servants. Meanwhile they will go after the kid and the woman. Just as Paul predicted, they find Celestine in the garden, where she looks up from her seat with calm poise and casually asks who they might be. The man strides forward with a mocking tone, saying she's acting all calm, as if she doesn't understand the situation she is in, and when his eyes sweep the garden he mutters, "Where's the kid?" Before shrugging and deciding to take the woman for now. But before he can lay a hand on her, Paul slams into him from behind and drives him to the ground, prompting the man to snarl that he has betrayed them. Paul apologizes that he just couldn't allow any harm to come to Celestine or Luca, but the man sneers with contempt, asking if he thinks he can suddenly become a saint. Before the tension can snap further, Celestine giggles, making the man whip his head toward her and demand what is so funny, and she tilts her head with a smile, saying she is sorry but he is worrying about such trivial things, that true evil lives boldly even in the light, and asking, "Right dear?" At that cue, the Prime Minister finally steps into view, beads of sweat on his forehead betraying his haste as he had rushed over the moment he heard the report, his stern gaze fixing on her as he warns it is dangerous for her to confront intruders like this, yet Celestine only smiles brighter, saying she heard about the scheme from Paul and personally asked him to handle it this way because with this, their crimes will carry a heavier penalty. They tried to harm Luca after all. She won't let this end with just trespassing charges. The Prime Minister admits she has a point, though he wishes she wouldn't do anything so dangerous. He then says in that case they should have them perform some good deeds. Recently, the delays in their country's medical advancements have been brought to light. Celestine has been deeply pained by the lives lost to the epidemic. The man asks what does he mean by that. The Prime Minister replies they are lacking something crucial, test subjects. Color drains from the man's face as the weight of the words sinks in, and the Prime Minister presses on, stating that they need detailed records charting the infection's progress, from first exposure to the onset of symptoms. Fixing the man with a cold gaze, he concludes that now he will do his best for the sake of society. There is surprise on Paul's face as well before he stands up and says he was a criminal too to begin with, so he will go to the same place as them. Besides, he also aimed for his life. The Prime Minister replies Celestine and Luca like him. That's all that matters. He doesn't like to admit it, but it would be a problem if he wasn't here. Paul still hesitates, prompting the Prime Minister to say he is such an annoying guy, his past doesn't matter at all, in their household day they hold merit above all else. Besides, he only wants to protect the happiness of his wife and son. Though Paul still cannot bring himself to like that man, he can relate to his desire to protect his family's happiness as a father. Even after he dies, he probably won't end up in the same place as those two. He pulls out the unfinished story, then at the very least he needs to face it one more time. He begins writing a story for his daughter again, but he hasn't written for a long time so it is kind of hard. He was able to write the story of Christine so smoothly. Meeting Celestine did indeed weaken his desire to kill the Prime Minister. But there was one time when he wrote a story out of spite. As a father with a daughter of the same age, there were emotions he simply couldn't suppress. Elsewhere, a man searches intently until he finds what he is looking for, and a slow smile curves across his face. Back at the mansion, a maid enters to inform Celestine that the letters have arrived. She leaves through them, finding the usual invitations and parties, but among them, Celestine discovers a lengthy letter from her brother. She sighs at the sheer length of it, remarking that he is as much of a worrywart as ever. The maid gently replies that it only shows how much he cares for her. Celestine asks if the maid might draft a standard reply on her behalf. However, she becomes surprised when she notices a second envelope within the stack, sealed with what appears to be blood. A few days later, Celestine attends a play with Clara. As they walk out, they discuss the performance, and Celestine remarks that the part where the protagonist's brother quietly watches over the couple was especially moving, perhaps because she could relate, having a brother of her own. Clara startles at this revelation, quickly pressing if she truly has a brother. Celestine says yes, she does, an older brother, only a little older, though far more troublesome than the kind brother in the play. Clara, flustered, cannot believe she knew nothing about Celestine's family. Celestine then mentions, almost offhandedly, that the same day she received her brother's letter, she also received an envelope sealed in blood. Clara exclaims that is not something to take lightly. Whether it is some kind of ritual or not, it's in terrible taste and isn't obviously the act of someone with malicious intent. Celestine assures her that she has already ordered an investigation into the letter's source. Besides, she adds, in her household such provocations are not uncommon, and they must be dealt with calmly. Clara insists that may be true but demands Celestine promise to inform her immediately if anything happens. Celestine smiles faintly, calling her reliable. Just then, Celestine spots a figure lunging toward Clara. Without hesitation, she pulls her friend aside, toppling to the ground in the process. The sudden jolt summons an old memory. She is a child again, telling her brother she will one day marry a prince and become the happiest princess in the world. He says she can do it, or rather she will make it happen. He then asks her what kind of prince she dreams of. She starts to answer, but falters, her mind going blank. When she opens her eyes again, her worried husband is by her side, with Clara anxiously exclaiming whether she is unharmed. Celestine sits up slowly, dazed, and asks in confusion where she is. Celestine turns to her husband, addressing him with chilling formality as Prime Minister, and asks if he knows anything. The stark distance of her words makes his face blanch, yet he only murmurs that she must still be confused. Clara quickly interjects, explaining that Celestine had shielded her when someone tried to attack and in the scuffle she had fallen down the stairs. Overcome with guilt, Clara cries that it is all her fault and begs forgiveness, but the Prime Minister calmly assures her the perpetrator has already been caught and dealt with and gently asks Celestine how she feels. She replies it is not too bad, and relief floods him. Tears prick his eyes at the thought of what might have happened. In a rush of emotion, he opens his arms, meaning to draw her into a protective embrace, but Celestine suddenly screams at the top of her lungs. Her expression twists with horror as she spits out that she had heard of his taste for young women, yet never imagined he would dare lay a hand on her, the Crown Prince's fiancée. The words freeze the air. Clara reels in shock, and the Prime Minister himself stares at her, stunned, muttering in disbelief, the Crown Prince's fiancée. She spits out it is useless to feel ignorance. She won't let him claim he didn't know her position. Celestine's eyes blaze as she spits out the words, calling him a disgusting, perverted old man. He flinches at the accusation, already sprawled on the floor where she had shoved him. The Prime Minister shakes the doctor, asking him what on earth is going on. The doctor admits Milady has lost all her memory since her marriage. Clara covers her mouth in disbelief. The Prime Minister turns to Celestine, who listens to their conversation and snaps, what the hell are they talking about? Just then, the maid hurries in, apologizing but says Luca won't stop crying. She thought perhaps just hearing his voice would soothe him. The Prime Minister offers to hold him, but Celestine stiffens and asks if that child is his grandchild. Clara blurts out that Luca is her and the Prime Minister's son. Celestine claps her hands over her ears, screaming at her to stop with such jokes. Then, quieter, she whispers, what the hell is wrong with all of them? A wife? A child? Are they all conspiring to deceive her? None of it makes sense. She feels herself on the verge of losing it. She declares she will return to her home. Clara starts to protest, but her husband answers evenly, very well. He realizes now that speaking of a wife and child to a Celestine who has lost her memories is far too cruel. For her to have accepted someone like him at all until now was already a miracle. Clara silently apologizes, but he cuts her off gently. For her safety, he says, they should have her examined by the doctor once more before sending her home. Then, turning to a servant, he instructs them to prepare the carriage. In the carriage, Celestine clutches her forehead, her face tense. Her mind is in chaos. She's supposed to be engaged to the crown prince and become the next crown princess. And yet she married that man and even has a child. Impossible. The carriage halts before her mansion, and Celestine bursts out, running straight into her brother's arms. Wester's face shines with unguarded joy as he holds her tightly. He confesses he got her letter by express courier and had been frantic with worry. He asks if she recognizes him. She replies yes, her brother Wester. She always thought of him as an overprotective and bothersome brother, but right now she feels so relieved. Her brother whispers everything will be fine now. Later, he studies her carefully and asks if she's going to be alright without any sleep. She thanks him softly and admits she's calmed down a little. He urges her not to overdo it, to keep her body warm, and then wonders if she's hungry. She tells him to calm down. Then she asks where their mother and father are. He explains they've left the royal capital to manage their domain, and that he has taken over this house for the time being. Since he isn't married yet, he's been allowed to stay here for as long as needed. Her thoughts catch on his words, and realization settles, she has lost her memory after all. He confirms it gently, saying that according to the servants, her memories after her marriage have vanished. She repeats the word marriage. He quickly reassures her there's no need to worry. It's no problem at all without having those memories. And to begin with, he never approved of this marriage. While he was studying abroad, the Prime Minister and the Crown Prince conspired to trap her. How many times he blamed himself for being unable to stop it. He was so worried that he sent letter after letter, but she always replied with the same thing. She's living happily, so he doesn't need to worry. Celestine asks did she really write that she was happy. Her brother says it must have been that man who had the servants write in her stead. He must have inspected every word of the letters. He says he even tried to bring her back, but she stopped him. He is sure the Prime Minister was pulling strings behind the scene. It is truly unsettling, but he's relieved things have ended up like this because it is good that she managed to leave that house. He gently takes her hand and says her room is just as she left, so they should live together again. This time, he promises to protect her. She smiles and thanks her brother. Meanwhile, Felix regards the Prime Minister with open shock, finding him seated stiffly on the garden bench. Once the Prime Minister finishes explaining, Felix asks if he intends to see her. The Prime Minister quietly replies that he cannot, his presence would only worsen her condition. Felix narrows his eyes at him, remarking that for the Prime Minister to show such emotion is most unusual. The Prime Minister states he has faced countless hateful gazes until now. He behaved in ways that deserved them and he never gave it much thought. But one hateful glare from her and he just couldn't stand it. Felix says starting over from scratch and building the relationship again is probably the only way. He thinks starting over fresh wouldn't be a bad idea. These are her feelings to consider, so he cannot say anything reckless. But since their relationship started off the way it did, why not try sending her a letter for now? But he warns him as he tends to be overly persistent, he should keep the letter short and considerate of her condition. And whatever he does, he shouldn't try to close the distance too quickly. Angry, the Prime Minister snaps he doesn't need to be told that much he knows. Felix retorts sure he does. On the other hand, her brother studies the gift sent by the Prime Minister, his expression hardening as he mutters what a tasteless offering it is. He unfolds the accompanying letter, which says he simply wishes for her health and happiness. Western says he will take care of this, believing anything from that man will only bring pain to Celeste. Felix, the former knight commander and national hero, has recently picked up a secret hobby. The girls watch him, mesmerized. He's so wonderful. One of them wonders what he's writing. The other claims he must be composing poetry. He is gazing at the flowers on the table. It looks like the flowers inspired him. They know staring so much would be rude, and that wouldn't be very ladylike, but they wonder what kind of poem he's writing. Celestine had once forced him into a ridiculous fairy costume, proudly declaring she'd hired the best designer in town and cooing that her husband looked adorable. He endured it in silence, eyes carrying the expression of a man that resigned to his fate. Felix smiles thinking about it, the women think what a kind smile, they are sure he's completed a beautiful poem. Unaware that he is barely holding back his laughter. Felix, the former knight commander and national hero, has a new hobby, writing an amusing observational diary about his friend's married life. Later on, the diary got found out by the Prime Minister and turned to ashes. Meanwhile, Celestine enters her room. Everything is as she has left, and there are so many books because her father and mother were so passionate about education. If she remembers right, the only gift her parents gave her was a teddy bear. She treasured it so much, but somehow it disappeared. She thought she would try sorting out what she remembers, but the unpleasant memories surface right away. She pulls out a book. It shaped her image of a prince when she was little. Her brother used to read it to her often. She pictures the Prime Minister's face and thinks that, no matter how she thinks it over, it cannot be. A knock sounds at the door, and her brother steps in, asking if she has a moment. Without waiting for an answer, he takes her hand and urges her to follow. A familiar merchant has arrived, and he hopes to buy something that might cheer her up. The merchant says her beauty keeps growing even more radiant. Today, he has brought a selection of the finest gold from across the land, inviting her to choose anything she desires. Celestine smiles softly and replies, "Thank you, Charbouin." She remembers this merchant. He has been dealing with their family since father met him. The item he handles seems to be of good quality, but his intensity makes her a bit uncomfortable. Her brother scans the collection, asking about an anklet, a brooch, or a ring that matches the color of her eyes, but Celestine is not in the mood for any of it. His gaze then lands on a pair of earrings. "These are very nice," he remarks. She admits they are pretty and his eyes light up. He asks what does she think. They would suit her perfectly. She replies they would suit him better. He frowns and argues he is a man. Earrings with a floral design wouldn't suit him. Besides, today is for her shopping day. They should pick something for her. Celestine shakes her head apologetically, insisting she doesn't want anything, then turns to the merchant and murmurs another apology. The merchant waves her off. He can see she isn't feeling well. He suggests, in that case, that perhaps this piece could keep her company while she rests. He informs her this is the original edition of the fabled series. No longer available on the market. It's a story about a woman married to a much older prime minister who falls in love with his son, a knight. The work was published anonymously and its popularity spawned various derivative stories. This is the original edition. He also admits it is said that the protagonist is modeled after her. Her brother panics and blurts she must not treat such vulgar things. And snaps at Cherubin to put that book away immediately. But Celestine says she's intrigued and tells Cherubin to get all the derivative stories of that book for her as well. With a small smile, she teases her brother, she can buy anything she wants, right? Later, she sits at the table with a pile of books in front of her. The next day, Mark arrives to greet her. He apologizes for the sudden visit, insisting he had sent a letter ahead, and mentions that the people at their house were worried as well. After a pause, he clears his throat and admits his father had originally intended to come. She regards him quietly before speaking. He must be Lord Mark, the Prime Minister's son. Later, in the garden, Mark tells her he's glad to see she's doing well. He asks after her brother, and she replies that he had some urgent business. Then, lifting her gaze to him, she adds that she had also wished to speak with him, her words catching him off guard. Her voice lowers, almost hesitant as she tells him she has always carried an ideal image of a prince since childhood, one that is nothing like the Prime Minister. The thought of him as a husband, raising children and living happily by her side, feels impossible to her. She admits that the other day she read the book said to be modeled after him and herself, and it left her unsettled. It made her wonder if their marriage was only a matter of appearances and whether the truth was that Mark and she were the ones truly in love. The surprise leaves him momentarily speechless. Before he gently takes her hand and calls her name, he asks her what kind of feeling did she have when he just took her hand. Did she feel a longing for him? She looks at him in surprise before dropping her gaze. He lets go of her hand and apologizes for his rude behavior. He says since she came to their house, their relationship has been good but strictly as family. Or maybe it was more like friends. It's understandable to be confused about his father, but he doesn't want her to overthink it and wants her to focus on resting and recovering. Mark falls silent, hesitating a little before requesting her to hold Luca just once, when she feels enough. The adults can understand the current situation, but that child is probably feeling very anxious right now. It might be harsh to us this of her right now, but only if it is possible. She quietly asks why, as mothers from aristocratic families typically don't hold their babies that much. Taking care of a baby is the wet nurse's job. She believes it would be terrible if an amateur like her caused an accident and it should be left to the wet nurse. Besides, she is scared. That child is a complete mystery to her. Mark realizes to the current Celestine, Luca must symbolize the memory she has lost. He apologizes for asking too much and decides to leave it for today. He tells her that if anything troubles her, he will help however he can. With that, he simply walks away. Meanwhile, Wester silently seethes, thinking why did work suddenly come up and for such a meaningless party too? He just wants to stay close to Celeste for as long as he can right now. Just then, a man appears and asks if he is, by any chance, Lord Wester. He turns around and recognition strikes him. Ludwig? The little Celestine snapped at Lou, reminding him that escorting a lady was a prince's duty. At this point it seemed she was still better at playing the prince. She held out her hand and warned that she would leave him behind if he didn't take it. She awoke from the dream, thinking it had been just a nostalgic dream. If she is not mistaken, that boy is from a foreign country who she used to play with when she was a child. But why is she dreaming about this now? She notices the texture of her skin and realizes she hasn't been able to take care of herself lately with everything going on. Outside, she spots her brother and asks if he has a moment. He looks slightly flustered at seeing her and asks what's the matter, acting a little strange. When she points it out, he blurts what does she mean, he is perfectly normal. She admits her skin has gotten a bit rough and wonders if he has anything for skin care. He hands her a product, saying it's popular with the ladies, and warns her to throw it away immediately if it doesn't suit her. She nods but he insists he means it, making her think her brother is such a weirdo. He then remembers her tea party with friends that afternoon, and she confirms she wants to catch up with them, thinking meeting old friends might trigger changes in her memories. Her brother apologizes for the sudden request but asks if she can spare time before then, as there's someone he wants her to meet, someone he ran into by chance at the party the other day and promises she'll be surprised. She turns to see Louis standing before him, smiling. It's been a while, he says. She asks if he's Lou, and though surprised at first, he grins and confirms. She smiles back, and he says he remembered her. She notes he's grown up, and he pouts, saying the way she says it makes him feel like a kid, before bragging that he has overtaken his father's position and become the youngest diplomat with a promising future. She mumbles that now he's just bragging, and he blushes, asking if that's wrong. She laughs, apologizes for teasing, and admits he has become quite a wonderful man. A smile breaks through his face, and he asks playfully, like a prince? She doesn't notice in surprise as he drops to his knees and presses a quick kiss to her hand. He grins and says he's just kidding. She snaps, demanding, who said he could go that far? As if used to her tantrums, he reasons that it was just a greeting. Her brother glares at him and says he invited him because he thought meeting an old friend might cheer Celestine a little, but it seems she has let her guard down. He remembers that she has lost some memories and asks if there is any way he can help. When he was a child, he came to this country because of his father's work. He couldn't make friends in a foreign land and felt so alone, but Celestine was the one who saved him. She knew he was the son of the diplomat who was talking with her father and she decided to play with him as a special favor until their fathers finished business. And that day, she gave him a nickname. Lulu was so happy. The few moments he spent with her were the most treasured memories. And that is why now he wants to repay the kindness. Lou thinks about it. The only memories that she lost were the ones after the marriage. He suggests it could be that her marriage to that man was something she wanted to forget that badly. After all, she used to say her dream was to marry a prince, like in a storybook. It must have been painful. His expression hardens as he declares that if it were him, he would never make her feel that way. At his words, her brother stands in outrage, cursing him, but he meets the glare with a smile and challenges him, saying even he knows deep down that he is better than that man, that's why he let him meet her. He turns to Celestine and asks if she knows there was once talk of arranging an engagement between them, meant to strengthen relations between their nations. Though she had always treated him like a little brother, so he never thought she saw him any other way, now he has grown up, and from now on he would be happy if she saw him as a man. With that, he rises, saying he would feel bad staying too long. Later, as Celestine has tea with her friends, her mind remains conflicted. She still cannot believe her marriage to the Prime Minister and Luca's presence makes her feel like she doesn't know herself anymore. It's terrifying. But at the same time, there's this sense of loss, as if she has let go of something precious. The discomfort grows stronger with each passing day. She snaps out of her thoughts when a friend asks what is the matter and replies she was just spacing out. Her friend then says she had such a lovely scent. What kind of perfume does she use? But Celestine isn't wearing one and guesses it could be from the care product that she used on her hands earlier. She tells her friends it was a gift, mentioning that the product is apparently trending among the ladies right now. Her friend frowns. That can't be possible as she has a hobby of learning about all sorts of care products, and this one seems almost custom-made. Celestine stiffens in surprise. Her friend smiles and adds that the design is beautiful, asking if her husband gave it to her. Celestine replies that it was her brother. Celestine enters her brother's room, feeling hesitant as he's not here, but she has no choice. This morning, her brother seemed like he was hiding something from her. She spots a note on his desk and picks it up, unusual for her meticulous brother to put something so carelessly. The note says the product was blended specifically for Celestine. He knew she had sensitive skin, so he thought she might need it and wanted her to have it. Celestine's heart suddenly races as she realizes it is from the Prime Minister. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister is in the dungeon and asks about the condition of the man who was captured. The knight replies the man insists he doesn't know anything and refuses to speak. The man swears he is telling the truth, he really doesn't know. He explains that by the time he came to his senses, he had already been caught and that he doesn't understand anything at all, including anything about that woman. The Prime Minister grabs the man's face and asks was it him who sent the letter? Who else is behind this? Did he target Celestine? He demands answers, his grip tightening as he tells him to spit it out. He dared to lay hands on someone precious to him, and now he thinks he can get away unscathed. Meanwhile, Celestine confronts her brother with the note. Her brother asks why does she have it. She looks away and apologizes for entering his room without permission, but demands why did he hide something that was meant for her. He flinches at the accusation in her voice and insists that's not it, he was only trying to protect her. But she refuses to listen to his excuses, declaring that if he ever does something like this again, she will never speak to him. Stepping outside, she looks at the butler and says there is someone she would like to invite to the manor, asking that a letter be sent to that person. Later, Clara cries like a baby, firing question after question about her health and leaving Celestine overwhelmed, who tells her to calm down. She didn't call her here just for her to cry. Wiping her tears, Celestine says there is something she would like to ask about the Prime Minister, about the time before Celestine lost her memories. It might be a chance to regain what she has lost. Flustered, she quickly adds that it's not like there are any deeper meanings, explaining herself more than necessary. Clara can't help but smile, seeing right through her awkward insistence. She then begins to recount that the first time she met both of them was at a certain ball. Embarrassingly, back then she had a sense of strong rivalry with her, fueled by her admiration. She was desperately trying to get her attention. So the next action she took in her desperation was the foolish idea of using the rumored tastes of the Prime Minister. A full scheme she tried by seducing him. Celestine says he must have fallen for it. And stills when Clara admits the Prime Minister brushed her hand away and didn't respond at all. And it was the only time she clearly showed her anger against her. That was undoubtedly a reaction caused from the two of them truly caring for each other. Even though the two come from separate backgrounds and are viewed differently by those around them, Clara says she truly believes they are a couple who share a deep and genuine love for each other. Celestine finally asks then why that person hasn't come to meet her directly. Clara says it is just a guess, but maybe it's because he is scared. That day, after she left the manor, the Prime Minister looked very sad while he quietly hugged Luca tightly. Clara suggests that he was probably worrying about what might happen if he got rejected by her again. Celestine decides firmly that she will write the letter herself. There's no point in wasting time on worry. She will meet him directly and have a proper conversation. In her letter, she asks him to consider coming to the manor, reminding him that she cannot run away forever, and she mentions Luca's matter as well. A few days later, a reply finally arrives. He thanks her for her concern but adds that perhaps it can be considered sometime in the future. Celestine's frustration boils over. There hasn't been any word from him for so long, and when something finally comes, it is only this simple, ambiguous message. She throws the letter down, muttering about the audacity of such an ambiguous reply after all this time. She turns to the messenger, who flinches at her gaze, and instructs him to send another letter on her behalf. Later, she finds her brother pacing nervously, his expression tense, and asks him what's wrong. Narrowing her eyes, she says he is not thinking of doing something shady again. is he? He jerks back, startled, and quickly blurts no, it's totally something different. He finally admits it's just he has lost contact with Sheriban, that he told him there was a necklace that would look great on her, and it seems it originally belonged to some royal family. It is quite expensive, and at that time he said he hadn't acquired it yet, so the purchase was put on hold. He recently contacted him about the matter, trying to get it for her as an apology, but he got no response. It seemed his house, located on the outskirts of the town, was completely abandoned. So he thought of contacting other merchants, and for some reason all of them are reacting like they are hesitant to speak. Her brother really doesn't understand what is going on. He then asks her if she is going somewhere. She replies no, she is here to welcome a guest. She opens the door and beams at the guest. Mark returns her greetings before looking at her brother and acknowledging him as well. Wester snaps what is going on. She quickly apologizes to her brother for calling Mark so suddenly, explaining that she had something she needed to ask and sent a letter. Her eyes narrow as she turns back to Mark and asks what is the Prime Minister doing right now. Mark replies there's a bit of a problem that has come up. Actually, there are rumors circulating in high society about his father being abandoned by her. And apparently they are looking forward to the ball next month. So there are people who wish to mock his sorry state. Celestine asks is he planning to attend alone. Mark admits he suggested at least finding a substitute, but he wouldn't listen. He insists that no other woman than her can stand by his side. He pulls out a letter and, hesitating because of what he told her the other day, asks her to attend the ball with his father. He admits he is aware it may sound harsh and apologizes, saying that she sent a letter, so he thought it was appropriate. Her brother cuts in sharply, calling it selfish. He points out that it is all just the result of the man's actions and asks that his sister not be involved in such pointless matters. As for his father, he insists he should attend alone as planned. Celestine, however, responds smoothly, surprising him. She says she will attend the ball, but in return, he must ensure the finest dress is prepared, warning that if he tries to cheap out, she will not attend no matter what. Mark smiles, relieved. Lou squeezes his eyes shut, overwhelmed as scenes from their childhood play over and over in his head. He prepares to meet her. He has trimmed his nails 2 millimeters, fixed his hair, and his clothes are perfectly neat. Her brother dramatically collapses onto the floor, lamenting why it has to be now of all times that he must leave the estate. Celestine reminds him it is his duty and there is no helping it. He grumbles that in the past she used to cry and beg him not to go. She tells him to stop troubling the servants and sends him on his way. As she stands there, a strange sense of déjà vu washes over her, and she wonders if she has had this kind of talk before. It is not the same kind of relationship she had with her parents, and it is different with her brother too. Then why? She jolts out of her thoughts when the maid arrives, announcing that a dress from the Prime Minister has been delivered. Celestine watches the dress with a smile, her eyes lighting up. A fabric of the finest quality, tailored to match her complexion, intricate embellishments, and a silhouette that enhances the body's lines beautifully. As Celestine slips into the dress, she asks the maid what she thinks, wondering if it looks strange. The maid beams, assuring her that it does not and that she looks absolutely stunning. Both maids seem flustered in her presence, and Celestine realizes she normally wouldn't ask about such things. It's not like she asks these questions for herself, but perhaps the Prime Minister might notice. Just then, Celestine is informed that the Prime Minister has arrived. She steps outside and freezes, caught off guard as he greets her. She asks what is going on, and he explains that it is nothing. He simply thought hiding some of his features might make things easier for her. A surge of anger rushes through her, and she yanks away the cloth covering his face, reminding him that she has a date with him today. His gaze falls on the dress she is wearing, and he comments that it suits her perfectly. He extends his hand, asking if he may escort her. Celestine takes it but quickly looks away, flustered, insisting that it is only because Lord Mark asked her to and that she is accompanying him reluctantly. He nods calmly, saying he understands, and that only stokes her fury further. When they arrive at the party, everyone is surprised to see them together. Lou is also present, attending for work-related reasons. The Prime Minister gives him a side glance and asks if he is a friend of Celestine's. She replies that he is a childhood friend. They lost touch when he returned to his country, but they recently reconnected. Lou shakes hands with the Prime Minister, saying he has heard much about him, then turns back to Celestine and asks if she will dance. Celestine apologizes, explaining that she just arrived and must dance first with the Prime Minister. After all, in this country, the first dance is always with one's partner. But the Prime Minister surprises her by saying she should go ahead. The two of them probably have a lot to catch up on. Fury replaces her initial shock and she bites back a retort. She says fine, she will go, and follows Lu onto the dance floor. All eyes fall on them as they move together. To everyone watching, they appear as a couple straight out of a painting. Yet whispers ripple through the crowd. She left the Prime Minister the moment they arrived to dance with that man. Could the rumors about their impending divorce be true? Some mutter that they were mismatched from the start. Lu notices the sadness on her face and asks if she's not feeling well. She looks startled and blurts she is fine. He asks, is the reason she is making such an expression the Prime Minister? He says he cannot forgive him. He won her over with underhanded methods and even now he's making her suffer like this. Celestine says that's not it. Her eyes fall to the floor as she murmurs softly that she doesn't believe the Prime Minister is that kind of person. With a sudden tug, he draws her against him and breathes how pitiful. By thinking that way, she's protecting herself from the painful days she suffered, isn't she? She tries to pull back, insisting he let go of her. Suddenly, a rough voice cuts through, pointing out that he is startling his wife and asking if he would mind letting her go. The Prime Minister steps forward, seizes his hand, and wrenches it away from her. Lu grabs the Prime Minister's hand, telling him that he must apologize even if it is in name only. She still is his wife in current time. He failed to be considerate of that. However, for her sake, he cannot back down here. She begs him to stop causing her any more pain. Lu tells the Prime Minister that he heard from Lord Wester that he has been persistently sending her unsolicited gifts and making unwelcome advances. He also questions tonight's party. Didn't he force her to attend as well? She calls out to him, telling him she chose to attend today of her own free will. Lu steps in front of Celestine, stating that the Prime Minister is brainwashing and controlling her who has forgotten everything, questioning how despicable he can even be. The Prime Minister questions what does he even mean by control. He responds that the Prime Minister has been pressuring those connected to her family and causing them harm. He also talks about Cherubin, a merchant closely associated with her family, is now on the brink of bankruptcy after falling victim to a terrible scam. The Prime Minister questions if he means to say that he is the perpetrator, asking for what reason is he blaming him. Lu responds as a silent pressure to force her to return to his household. He also tried to corner Lord Western, who stands as a barrier between him and Celestine. He continues that Cherubin was attempting to acquire a necklace for Celentine's sake. The necklace apparently used to belong to some royal family, but there were no certificates or records to prove it. Any ordinary merchant would have avoided such a risky item, but he had absolute confidence in his judgment. He was convinced the necklace he saw in a place was genuine and he approached Lord Wester with a business proposal. Although the deal was initially put on hold, Cherubin saw an opportunity and he went to great lengths to gather and prepare the actual item. However, in the end he could not acquire the necklace and the money he had desperately scraped together vanished. It seems that the contract had been tampered with. Cherubin pointed out the fraud in the contract, but it was completely dismissed. Worse yet, the matter reached his lenders the next day and he was immediately pressured for repayment with all his recoverable assets seized. To make matters worse, the rumors spread, leading even his long-standing business partners to cancel their contracts. Now his merchant house is on the brink of bankruptcy. The sequence of events unfolded far too quickly, as if someone had been orchestrating it. The certain place where Cherubin saw the necklace was at a party at the royal castle. For a con artist to infiltrate a palace where identities cannot be faked, someone must have let them in, and the only person capable of such a thing would be someone of significant standing in this country. He asks the Prime Minister if he is wrong here. The Prime Minister stays quiet for a while before he begins to laugh, stating that this is truly marvelous. He thanks Lu for sharing such an entertaining fairy tale. He mentions that his story is nothing more than speculation, that it was so absolutely unrealistic that it amused him greatly. He also asks if he heard that story from Cherubin. Lu responds that a few days ago, after speaking with Lord Wester, he saw Cherubin on the outskirts of town, beaten and battered, so he spoke to him face to face and he too suspects that the Prime Minister is the one who is the mastermind behind it. The Prime Minister questions if that is the case, asking why does not Lu then go and meet him again and ask him directly if he was truly involved in the scam. The Prime Minister mentions that he is sure he will admit it was a misunderstanding. Lu becomes totally taken aback and asks the Prime Minister if he did something to Cherubin. The Prime Minister says it is such an unflattering way to put it. He showed up in front of him yesterday desperately pleading about something. So he heard him out, and in the end he apologized, saying it was all a misunderstanding, and he even said he was lucky to be alive and was in tears, completely breaking down. Lu yells at the Prime Minister, questioning if he threatened him. The Prime Minister says if he may offer some unsolicited advice, it is that if he is going to wave around such a shallow call for justice, he should choose his opponents properly. Also saying this is not addressed just for him. It is said that silence is golden, and rightly so. There are too many people who spread baseless rumors, not realizing they might lead to irreversible consequences, and that he's aware everyone present here is far too wise to act so foolishly. So he tells Lu to calm down and smiles. Celestine tries to smile too. The Prime Minister is then told something about Luca which makes Celestine totally scared. The Prime Minister states that he will return to the estate immediately, making her call out to the Prime Minister, grabbing his hand and asking him what happened to Luca. The Prime Minister responds that it seems he suddenly developed a fever, but they have already arranged for a doctor. He apologizes to her and tells her he will have one of the servants escort her, as he will be going back to the estate ahead of her, but she tells him she is going too and she will return to the estate as well. He calls out to her and asks her if she is sure about this. She responds yes, and they should hurry so they can be by Luca's side. Lu calls out to Celestine asking her why she is doing that, and also tells her if she returns to the Prime Minister house she will just suffer again. She apologizes to him and tells him that she has to go back immediately, but Loz tells her there is already a dog dress. Isn't there? So there's no reason for her to go. She tells him that she does not understand it herself, but if she does not go to him right now, she feels like she will lose who she is. Someone's voice is urging her strongly. Shooting desperately from deep inside to hurry and return to Luca. She apologizes to him and tells him that she is going. She leaves with the Prime Minister as Lu thinks about them in childhood and grits his teeth in frustration. They step in the room and ask about Luca's condition. They are told that he is calmer than earlier, but his fever has not gone down at all. Right now he is taking medicine and resting. Luca slowly opens his eyes and blinks at Celestine. When he holds out his hand, she doesn't hesitate and runs to him. Seizing it, she whispers that she's sorry. The Prime Minister stares at them and asks the maid to bring Celestine some tea and to let her rest. The maid then questions if Celestine would like to have a rest for a bit, so she will prepare some tea, stating that if she continues like this it will harm her health, so she should please rest, if only for Luca's sake. Celestine smiles and realizes that the maid is right and tells her to prepare some herbal tea. The maid responds that she will bring it at the usual temperature. Celestine seems confused, to which the maid realizes that she has said too much. The maid tells her when she has Luca nearby, she drinks tea at a lower temperature to avoid any accidents. The maid says sorry to her as Celestine tries to think about it. After a while, the doctor is checking up on Luca again. The doctor gives them the news that he is fine now and his temperature is normal, so there is no need to worry. Both of them light up with happiness. Celestine grabs onto Luca's hand while the Prime Minister has tears in his eyes. The Prime Minister asks Luca what is it? What's wrong? Luca tries to call out to his dad, making him more emotional. He goes and hugs Luca while she stands there. He asks Luca to say it one more time. Luca pulls down his mustache. Celestine calls out to Luca and tells him that his father is troubled, so he should let him go. The Prime Minister is taken aback as he stares at Celestine. She does seem that she has something she would like to ask him and questions why did he encourage her to dance with him. At that time it felt like she was being told she was not needed and it was sad. The Prime Minister responds there is no way he'd ever think that she was not needed. She questions. Then why is it? He responds, that he was afraid. She questions what was he afraid of. He responds that he was afraid she would take that man's hand of her own accord. So before that could happen, he let go of her hand and left. It is just a guess, but perhaps fear was the reason. He tells her she can call him disgusting if she wants. He tries to turn his face away, but she calls out to him. Her voice trembles as she admits he might think it absurd for her to say this now, yet she wants to return to this house. She confesses she's afraid she's been selfish, but she believes the memories she's lost are tied to this place. Then, gathering courage, she asks if he would allow her to come back. His eyes light up, joy breaking through. Allow it? He repeats, almost incredulous. That isn't permission to grant, it's the very thing he's been wishing for. After a while, the merchant is very happy that she has returned. He asks her if she is in good health. She says yes and apologizes for causing concern. She remembers she refused, but in the end, the Prime Minister insisted. The morning before leaving for work, he called a trusted merchant so she could buy whatever she wanted. So she thought of contacting other merchants, but for some reason all of them are reacting like they are hesitant to speak. Now that she thinks about it, this merchant is nice to her. He's talking to her normally, that he tells her that young people being lively is definitely the best. They have had some young ones join in his merchant house recently, so the old love watching the growth of the younger generation. She asks him if he ever hears any stories or rumors from other merchants. She also talks about Shurubin as the rumor. He tells her he has been hesitant to talk about it directly with her, but as it happens, shortly after she returns to her family home, there were bad rumors spreading about her. Of course, he denied that she would ever be so unreasonable, but among the other merchants, rumors spread that she was like a troublesome client. And the cause of those rumors is Shurubin. That man already had a bad reputation in the industry for his aggressive behavior. His ability to appraise items was legitimate, so he had status as a merchant, but as a person he was lacking. After having a meeting with her again after a long time, he began using her name to intimidate clients and conduct one-sided deals as he pleased. He even spread rumors claiming he was her favorite, boasting about it however he liked. But while it seems that his time to pay the price has come, he crossed the one line in this country that should never be crossed. He then realizes if he talks too much the Prime Minister will scold him, trying to act cool like a youth protecting his beloved lady but losing his temper. He also tells her that he forgot something important and gives her something, telling her to accept it. It is a necklace. As he states, this was commissioned by the Prime Minister as a gift for her. It was completed a little while ago, but her absence delayed its delivery. She takes a look at it and tells him even when she lost her memory, she has never felt the desire for any expensive accessory. She wonders why does that dress from before and this necklace makes her so happy, thinking what could be the case. And that concludes the video today. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you want another part. In the past, Lu was scolded by the language teacher. She questioned him. How many times must she tell him this is how the grammar works in this country? For him, it was too fast to catch and he could not understand what she was even saying. He would wonder why did not his father hire a tutor who could speak his native language. Even the maids would find it difficult taking care of someone who could not understand the language, wondering what would they do if he could ask something. Lu heard them and told them it was fine even if he asked, they wouldn't understand anyway. He started feeling very bad because everyone was making fun of him. People would call him too quiet, not knowing what he's thinking was so creepy for them. They would bully him into saying something and even making fun that he was so weak and that they just gave him a little push and he fell down. He would wonder why everyone would laugh at him, wishing for them to shut up. That is when Celestine appeared in his life, telling him that from now on she would call him Lu. Looking at his expression, she realized that he was not able to understand her language. As he realized she got aware of that, he started feeling very bad, but she treated him differently. She introduced herself to him and told him she would speak slowly. She asked him if he could not understand her words, but he smiled and told her he could understand a little. She grabbed his hand and started running, telling him that she would show him her special book, which was easy to understand so it would help him learn. That act alone made him very emotional. Back in the present, he's reading that book as he curls himself in his bed. Meanwhile, they are having food as Mary asks his father if he does not think that he's putting on a bit too much dressing. Prime Minister responds, what is even the point of eating vegetables without them? He tells Mary to stop nagging him so much. Celestine finds it a very peaceful moment. She's aware that she hardly has any memory of eating together as a family before she lost her memory. She wonders if this was her everyday normal life. She wishes to regain her memories as soon as possible. The Prime Minister asks Mary how is that thing going on. Mary responds that he plans to go to the town to investigate today. The Prime Minister asks about the location and Mary tells him that he has got it covered. Celestine hears them and states that she thinks she should go to town for shopping today. Mary stands up asking her if she wasn't attacked in town before. It is too dangerous for her. She responds that she heard the culprit was caught and she wants to go to town at least once for the sake of regaining her memories. He tells her then at least do it when he can go with her. The Prime Minister tells her that it would be good for her to take her breather so she can go. Mary is totally taken aback by his father's decision. The Prime Minister tells him to not worry as he will increase the number of bodyguards and he will tell them to be discreet so she can walk around without concern. Celestine thanks him happily that he just tells her to not forget to get something for Luca as she responds. Of course she won't. The Prime Minister asks Luca what he would like to get. Mary still seems concerned for Celestine's safety. In the town, Celestine is taken aback, looking around. She realizes it is a well-maintained bustling town. She thinks about the Prime Minister knowing that person is definitely someone who gets things done. She notices a painting on the wall and wonders if this play could be based on that book. But she thinks that the synopsis seems a bit different, wondering if it could be part of one of the many spin-offs. Suddenly Lou steps near her and tells her that he never really liked that play. He mentions that it justifies infidelity deliberately structured to provoke the audience's emotions. He finds it absolutely the worst. The bodyguard suddenly steps in between them, to which Lou tells him he is an acquaintance. He says sorry to Celestine for the sudden approach, stating that he just happened to see her and couldn't help coming to talk. He asks her that it surprised her, didn't it? He then asks about Luca's health, questioning if he is alright now. Celestine smiles and tells him yes, he's completely okay, and this morning he was happily eating breakfast. That he responds that is good to hear. He asks her if she is also here for shopping. She responds that it is correct and asks him if he is here for that too. He tells her that he came to buy a book. She asks if he is looking for books in their country's language. He tells her yes, he can read them with ease now, and it is all thanks to her. When he was young, the closed-off world he lived in was opened by her to him. He tells her that the one book about the prince that she showed him, he bought a copy for himself and still treasures it to this day. She thinks about that book and remembers it. She tells him that she found it in her old room at her parents' house the other day. It was so old that it was covered in dust. He asks her why it's that she always said that she would marry a prince someday, so did not she cherish that book? She tells him that as a child she did, but thinking about it now, to her being raised strictly to become the crown princess by her parents, dreaming of a prince in her story was everything she had. But the old her lost her memory and left that book behind at her parents' house. She thinks that she no longer needed to rely on the image of a perfect prince. Right after losing her memory, she was confused about so many things, but now she completely understands. He is totally taken aback and becomes hesitant. He wonders why that is the case. Because all this time, he clung on to that dream and lived for it. When she told him that she was going to marry a prince someday and become the world's greatest princess, she notices his reaction and asks him what is wrong. He has tears in his eyes. He tells her that she must be under a bad spell after all. He holds her hand and steps near her. He tells her that he has to set her free. She's taken aback as he smirks. Meanwhile, Mary is looking for that person. He thinks that suspicious person was spotted around this area. Is it over there? He had told them that he was just approached by a guy in a robe in town, then he lost his memory. Maddie is aware that man is definitely the one who attacked Celestine and the others, but he wonders why does not he change his testimony no matter how much they interrogate him. He wonders if he was really being controlled by something like magic or a curse. He wonders if that could even be possible. But there is also that letter that was sent to Celestine. He does not know if it is directly connected to the subject of this investigation, but he needs to proceed with caution. He then hears something and turns to look behind. That he finds a child, and that child runs to him. He ends up falling, but Mary catches him. Mary tells him that it is dangerous and he should be careful on cobblestone streets. That is when someone comes from behind and stabs Mary. That person then runs away and Mary realizes that he needs to chase after, but he is unable to. The child starts to cry, stating that person told him to fall in front of him. If it were the old him, he would never have left his guard down around a kid like this. The kid mentions that he never thought that it would turn out like this and starts saying sorry. Mary ponders that before he realized that it seems like he has gotten soft on kids. That he tells the kid that it is fine, it is not his fault. Luca is looking outside as he is asked if something is the matter. The Prime Minister steps in and holds Celestine and greets Lou, mentioning that they meet again. The Prime Minister mentions that he came to bring something that his wife forgot and states what a coincidence this is. He has always wanted to sit down and have a proper talk with him. He asks though, how about they have a talk, more like a tea party at his place now? The Prime Minister asks him to come this way as the weather is lovely today, so why do not take this chance to enjoy tea outside? He asks Lou what does he think. Isn't this garden beautiful? He tells him that it has been carefully looked after since Celestine came to their home. He tells him that those roses over there are also called Celestine, stating that these roses are a special variety cultivated by their family's gardener. Lou becomes really frustrated and questions. It is unsettling, isn't it? Keeping her confined to a place like this, keeping her constantly under surveillance and using her child as a means to bind her. Celestine calls out to him, questioning what is really going on with him. He tells her that he still cannot trust the Prime Minister. He mentions that the letter that looked like some cursed artifact. He believes that the Prime Minister is behind all of it and the attack that happened to her in town. He also thinks he's the one who's after that. Celestine tells him that it's quite an accusation. Right then a knight approaches him. The Prime Minister asks him what is all this commotion. They have a guest here. He apologizes and mentions that just now they received word that Lord Mary was attacked by someone. He is told that it seems like he was attacked from behind while in town and the perpetrator is still at large. Lord Mary is currently unconscious. Celestine totally is taken aback and tells the Prime Minister that they should hurry to his side. The Prime Minister tells Celestine that he is sorry, but could she go ahead without him? He cannot leave their guest alone. Besides, there is something that he would like to discuss with him. Things that Lu has been acting strange lately. He is constantly rude to the Prime Minister as well. Leaving the two of them alone together wouldn't be a good idea. The Prime Minister tells her that he is counting on her to look after Mary. She tells the maid to quickly prepare the carriage and apologizes to Lu, but Lu calls out to Celestine, telling her that the man who attacked him is still on the run, so it is too dangerous for her to go alone. She tells them that she will have plenty of guards accompany her, so it will be fine. He still wishes for her to wait but she leaves. Now it is just the two of them as they both glare at each other. Celestine then hurries to Mary. She's told that he has not regained consciousness yet, but his life was saved. She looks at him as he opens his eyes slightly. She asks him if he can hear her. He tells her to not look at him that way. She wonders what kind of reaction is that. He tells her this morning he told her it was dangerous but still he ended up like this, so he's so pathetic. He tells her that she has her own troubles, so he is truly sorry for being such a burden. She then asks him, are not they a family? Worrying about him is only natural and rushing to his side is her rightful duty. He smiles at her and tells her she is right. He then questions about the boy who was with him. He is told that he is under care in another room. Mary is told that he is still too stunned to speak and they are planning to ask him about the man who attacked him once he calms down. He states that this happened because of his carelessness and by showing leniency to him. Mary then asks Celestine how is it that she knows that the attacker was a man. He tells her that the path was dark and aside from him and the attacker, only the boy was there. The boy currently cannot speak. Moreover, the attacker hid his appearance under a robe, so his gender was not clear. He questions where did she get the information that the attacker is a man. She realizes that Lu was the one who told her that the man who attacked Mary is still on the run, so it is dangerous to go alone. She realizes this is not good and she has to stop him. Meanwhile, Lu tells the Prime Minister that his son is teetering between life and death, and yet he shows no emotion. The Prime Minister responds that even his foolish son is still part of the Knights. He is trained daily to remain composed regardless of the situation. The Prime Minister then says that he will get straight to the point and asks this whole incident, isn't it all his doing, right? Lu asks and what makes him think that. The Prime Minister questions where did he learn about the suspicious letter that was sent to his wife. He responds that he heard from Lord Wester. The Prime Minister states that it is strange he deliberately withheld information about the letter from Lord Wester to spare him unnecessary worry and confusion. It was briefly mentioned in public at the time when Celestine was attacked, but only her attendants were present at the scene. The Prime Minister tells Lu that he was far too careless. Lu ponders that nothing he ever did went well. The atmosphere at home was tense and he did not have any friends. Someone like him, the days he spent with Celestine were irreplaceable treasures. Even after returning to his country, he worked hard at studying and swordsmanship, hoping to get closer to her ideal. Before long, he found out she had gotten engaged to the Crown Prince. As a man in his adulthood, he planned to quietly wish for her happiness for achieving her dreams, but instead she was unilaterally rejected by the Crown Prince and forced to marry an older ugly man through a scheme. He thought that was just too cruel for her. The girl who used to talk about princes in fairy tales being forced to marry someone like the Prime Minister. He tells the Prime Minister that in his country he could not get any accurate information about her, so he traveled here to uncover the truth. That is when he learned about that wild play. He was shocked to see him and Celestine's by chance in front of the theater and the look on Celestine's face. He thought she must have been under some kind of dark spell, and in that moment he swore to himself that he would become her prince and save her. The Prime Minister asks him if that is what led him to that absurd idea of curses. He continues that while investigating the matter of that letter, he ended up in a remote village to the south of here. In that village there was said to be a curse that could erase memories using blood and heal those with wounded hearts, but who would believe such a story straight out of a fairy tale? Some of the younger villagers even laughed, calling it a mere legend. But a few months ago, apparently there was a foreigner who came here to investigate the curse. Based on old documents, the Prime Minister questions that honestly, to travel such a remote place for a curse that even the villagers do not believe, he cannot understand that. Lu says that even in the village there were those who mocked him, saying it was a waste of time. But the curse was real. The strength of his feelings for her brought the legend back to life. He smirks and states that he is the one, the only person who can save Celestine. The Prime Minister finds it ridiculous. He tells Lu that he is just a delusional child drowning in stories that suit his fantasies. The Prime Minister also says that he claims it is for Celestine's sake, but all he does is impose his ideals, and when things do not go his way, he raises his voice. He questions if Celestine ever asks him to save her. The Prime Minister tells him that he does not understand anything about her, the play he spat on as vile, she's the one who had that script written. He mentions that Celestine is a much freer and shrewder woman than he thinks. Lu yells at him to shut up, and he's the one who shouldn't act like he knows everything. He takes out a knife and rushes towards the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister stops him. Lu states that there is no way Celestine would have had a vulgar script like that written which was made just for profit. That is when Celestine appears. Lo smiles at her and tells her to just wait a bit, he will get rid of this villain quickly and then they'll finally be happy together. He tells her that he will make her the happiest princess there ever was. She tells him that she told him that she is no longer a little girl who clings to princes from fairy tales. She states that she's staying by the Prime Minister's side of her own free will because she is envious of the person she was before she lost her memories and the person who was so drawn to him. He is totally taken aback and asks her what she is saying. He tells her that she was the one who said that she wanted to marry a prince, and he tells her that he's telling her he will make it happen, while this guy is the complete opposite. So why? He then realizes that he is aware that when she was back at her family's estate, he kept sending her gifts trying to win her favor with wealth, stating that it's such a vulgar and ugly act. He also tells her that the people say that she is greedy, vain and overly indulgent, but he does not believe it because he understands her better than anyone. He tells her to wake up, stating that she is a pure and a kind woman. She remembers something, realizing that she has heard such a thing before. She thinks that Lo is just like him. She tells them that he only sees the version of Celestine that he has created in his own mind. The Prime Minister reminds him that he told him before, did not he, that Celestine is a freer woman than he can imagine, and because she lives freely, that makes her so beautiful, and it is because of that despite his age, Celestine completely stole his heart. Despite his age he fell in love with her. These words touch Celestine's heart as she calls the Prime Minister her husband and tells him she's so happy. The Prime Minister is taken aback and asks her could it be that her memories have returned. The Prime Minister is sorry for making her worry. She glares at Lu as he's totally shocked, wondering why this is happening. She then approaches him and tells him that she can no longer play along with his games. She commands to arrest him. He is being arrested as he stares at her, noticing this look on her face. He asks her who she is. She responds that she is Celestine, the one who spent her childhood with him and the one who lost her memories. All of them are her. She says goodbye to him and tells him next time he should just find a princess for himself. She smiles and hugs the Prime Minister. Lo is totally shocked, finding it unacceptable, asking to give him his Celestine back. After that, Lu was detained under strict surveillance until his sentence was finalized and peace finally returned to the Prime Minister's family. Luca cried to his mother as she hugged him gently. Clara was very glad that Celestine was safe. Celestine asked her that she made her worry, didn't she? Clara was totally taken aback, realizing that their Celestine was back. Celestine then looked at the Prime Minister and then looked away. She was questioned what was wrong for her to look away from the Prime Minister, questioning that if she still had not regained her memories. She responded that was not the case. For some reason, even more than before, she lost her memories whenever she looks at her husband. Her heart races hard. They realize that even though she lost her memories, she was drawn to the Prime Minister, knowing that he loves every part of her, even the hidden ones. She smiled, knowing that might be true. His Highness runs inside towards Celestine, asking if she is all right. He is very happy and tells her he heard the news while he was away on a trip and rushed back. He tells her that he cannot believe it was him. He's sorry that it is his fault for introducing her to Lu. He asks her if her memories have come back. She tells him yes. He finds it a relief. He also mentions that he heard about the letters. He finds it hard to believe it was sorcery and the truth remains uncertain. She mentions that it seems the spell Lu used was originally meant to save those with wounded hearts, but since he did not need it, perhaps it had incomplete effect. She tells him in any case, her husband's and her family's presence is what saved her. He asks her how can she say that so confidently that he states that he's talking about the letter. Why did she hide it from him? If she had reported him to him earlier, then there could have been more they could do. The Prime Minister states that he is truly such a pure and straightforward person, that's why he ends up being used for someone's convenience. He asks the Prime Minister what does he mean. The Prime Minister responds that Lu approached him to get closer to Celestine. First a party, then a business trip. Asking him, does he not think the timing is just too perfect? He thinks about it and realizes, wondering if it was all his plan, that he asks the Prime Minister if he knew that he was being used and just let it happen. He asks the Prime Minister if he is mocking him. The Prime Minister responds that he would not dare mock him. Thanks to him, they were able to identify the culprit quickly. That he gets more angry, but Clara tells both of them to stop. She mentions that she is aware someone like her is not in a position to offer an opinion to both of them. However, now that Celestine's memories have returned and peace has finally awakened, she just cannot stand by and watch the two of them fighting. She questions, how about they have a contest instead of fighting? They should call it who can give Celestine what she desires the most contest. Whoever makes Celestine feel the happiest will be the winner, as the name suggests. The Highness finds it a pointless context, but Celestine mentions it sounds good to her and says that should be fun. Celestine mentions that she's looking forward to it and both of their gifts. He asks Celestine if she is serious about doing this. Celestine asks Clara if she could come with her to shop for a bit. Lara responds that she would be happy too. Meanwhile, even after causing such trouble, Lu is being treated so kindly. There is no helping it. He is still a noble from another country, and his sentence has not been finalized yet. He has just been staring at the blank wall this whole time without saying anything. They wonder if he is alright. They wonder, who knows, maybe his mind is broken. Celestine's brother thinks that the one who will make Celestine the happiest will win. He wonders how did it come to this, but he is aware no matter the challenge, he cannot let the Prime Minister beat him. He then wonders what should he give her. He remembers when she was young she got a teddy bear and was very happy. The Prime Minister goes to meet Mary and asks him if he's still alive. The Prime Minister tells him how disgraceful it is of him to be stabbed in the back. Mary asks him if he was the one who arranged the doctors. He mentions that there were doctors of various nationalities and he heard that renowned physicians from each country were gathered. Apparently, there was also a large anonymous donation to the hospital around the same time. The Prime Minister responds that he has no idea what he is talking about. Mary tells his father since Celestine came into his life, he has really changed. Mary knows talking like this, just the two of them. He never would have imagined it when he was a kid. Mary asks so what happened with the case. As expected, the center of that letter was the mastermind. It is a man named Lu who is Celestine's childhood friend. The details are still under investigation, but it seems he used a sorcery from the southern regions to manipulate memories. But chronologically speaking, the one who attacked him must have been someone else. Even when he tried to get him to talk, he seemed out of it. When they confronted him, he proudly repeated the same thing he said to him at the party. He is probably mentally deranged. Mary asks the Prime Minister if she is safe. The Prime Minister tells him yes, she is safe and her memories have returned, that he finds it good. That the Prime Minister then tells him he would like to ask him something. He questions what does he think he should give Celestine as a present to make her happy. He states that he is actually competing with her brother over who can give her the best gift. And he is popular with women, isn't he? So he would know. That's why he thought he would ask someone with good taste. Mary questions is this some kind of jab at him? The Prime Minister states that is not the case. He is seriously struggling with this. Since her memories returned, she won't meet his gaze anymore and he might have made her hate him. Mary tells him that it's absolutely impossible. It paces him off to the end that he does not trust her. If it is something she wants, then he should be the one who knows best. It is something he could never give her anyway. He tells the Prime Minister if he really thinks hard about Celestine, he will know the answer immediately. Mary asks him why does not he just head back already and take that bouquet with him as he does not need it. The Prime Minister realizes that he almost forgot to give him something important. He gives her something and tells her it is from Celestine and Luca. It seems that they learned this from Hanslem and made pressed flowers together, wishing for his quick recovery. He looks at it and smiles, making the Prime Minister realize that he has changed as much as him. They both are then questioned if they are ready with their gifts. Her brother questions before they start. May he say something? He tells Celestine that if he wins, he's taking her back home. Clara becomes totally shocked, telling him that he cannot just add his own rules like that. Celestine tells him, all right, he can do that. She mentions that he is so confident that she's looking forward to this. He is told to go first as he shows her the gift that it is a teddy bear that he asks Celestine if she remembers it. It is the one their parents gave her when she was a child, and they probably gave it to her on a whim, but she treasured it dearly. She finds it really nostalgic, realizing that one day it suddenly disappeared, so she thought their parents had thrown it away. Tells her the other day by pure chance he found it tucked away on a shelf in the back of the library and he thought she'd be happier with this than with something he bought. Since she treasured it so much, she thanks him and mentions that she's glad she could see this little one again. That he is totally taken aback and asks her if that is it. He thought that she would be more moved or happy. She tells him that she surely dressed it and she is glad, but it is something she lost so long ago, so she does not have that much attachment to it anymore. That he is totally shocked as she then looks at her husband asking what did he prepare. He tells her for him, he offers himself, he will dedicate the rest of his life to her. She's totally shocked while her brother tells him to not joke around. There's no way his sister would be happy with that. She smiles and tells him she's so happy and there's no gift that is better than this. Her brother tells her that she has been acting strange ever since she got married. She responds it is because she finally managed to drive their parents off to some remote place and create a peaceful home. Her brother tells her that she'd be happier coming back home than staying with someone like him. Her brother tells her he will protect her from sadness and threats alike. So please come back home. She starts patting his head. He cannot believe she is doing that. She tells him what is wrong with the boy being patted on the head. It is not weird for someone to like you or beautiful things, or to treasure a teddy bear for that matter, right? He's totally shocked. She tells him that this teddy bear is far too clean for something like that was supposedly stored in the library. She tells him that he has been taking such good care of it and thanks him for that. He tells her there is no need to thank him because that teddy bear is the one. He stole it when they were children and he did not mean to steal it at first. But she would leave the teddy bear on the sofa and he just thought he would borrow it for one day and then brought it to his room and then one more day and another day and before he knew it, it went on until now. He apologizes to her for giving something he stole as a gift. He must be the one who is out of his mind. She tells him to hold out his hand. Celestine tells him it is not exactly the same as back then, but she bought these earrings because she thought they would suit him. And she also gives him that teddy bear telling him that he should take it with him because this little one is something he truly needs. She tells them that they were raised being told to act the part, her as the future crown princess to be ladylike and him as the next family head, to be manly. She tells him, but for him he was always told to be manly. She thinks that this cute teddy bear was his only refuge from all of that and that is why she is happy because of him. Because he carried everything on his own and that little teddy bear was there by his side to support him. She tells Simon she lost all her memories. She retraced who she used to be back then, when she dreamed of a prince as their parents dictated. But happiness is not something others can decide for one, it is thanks to her husband that she remembered that. And she loves him no matter what anyone says, so from now on, he should please make himself his top priority. It looks like the winner of this competition is the Prime Minister. Her brother thinks that he always treated her like a little girl and never even tried to listen to what she had to say. He realizes that she has grown up so much that she does not even need someone like him anymore, but all he really wanted was to protect her. Everything he did came from a wish for her happiness, and there's no lie or deceit in that. Clara tells him that Celestine surely understands everything. Celestine thanks him for protecting her all this time and mentions from now on it will be her turn to spoil him, so he should be prepared for that. Meanwhile, Lou is still sitting the same way. Cherubin steps in as he tells him he is late and asks him what on earth was he doing. Cherubin asks Lou if he has any idea how much trouble it took to bribe the guards. He tells them that there is no time, they need to get out of here quickly. And that concludes the video today. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you want another part.